Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Synctank.
Sorry. So I was supposed to like set the show for the right time, but I always forget like Earth. Anyway, good to see you all. How you been?
Good.
What does the Earth mean?
It's just so. Have you guys been paying attention? Because it's weird here. I don't know. It's like
On the planet Earth, it's weird.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
feeling kind of like Gordon Shumway about it, like recently, but you know, like a lot more and more. Like every time, I'm just like, is that how people react? Like it's also nice that like laugh tracks have gone away because now people can have like honest reactions. David, what's up? Confirmed. Good to see you guys. I'm glad you're all here. Wonderful. Thank you for confirming. Like anyway, a couple of me things. I'm just gonna just like ego stroke myself about one thing real quick because I'm pretty happy about this. Let me see if I can find the thing. Where'd it go? Well, okay, first off, this isn't really related to anything, but I liked it. Ian was like, we can talk about this more later. Tell your kids that Santa Claus is made up and has been used to divide the family unit. It gets kids to worship a fantasy man hero and turns them away from the appreciation of their parents. It also makes kids think that their parents are liars when they find out. Don't let this communist agate prop seep into your family. There is no debate on this. Don't slander the name of Jesus Christ by lying to your kids on Christmas, which is like,
Wait. This doesn't make any sense. Isn't Santa capitalist? I swear, Norman O'Brown's Life Against Death really established that. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go on.
Which is, I think there's a lot going on here with it. Because first off, it's like everyone has to give to each other. And then I always think of the Christmas story where the lady cuts off her hair to buy her husband a chain for his watch, and he sells his watch to buy her hair combs. You know what I mean? And so then they end up with like no hair and hair combs and a watch rope like without a watch. Anyway, but Saint Nicholas not only existed, he literally slapped Saint Arius. You know what I mean? And so I feel like we don't need to get away from Santa Claus. We need to get back to truth. That's all it really comes down to. That's just a thought I had, right? Because Saint Arius is pretty cool too.
I've had an obligatory that Santa Claus was a mushroom. Full stop.
So okay, so
Everything's a mushroom.
I think a lot of things like the idea of Christmas and how the rituals like Catholicism has to impregnate it has to integrate the shadow, right? So it goes in and it impregnates the religions that exist there and makes rituals out of them. So okay, this is our Saint Nicholas feast on the 6th, right? And then from there we have a Christmas, which is like for Christ, but it's still really about the time spent about Saint Nicholas. And yeah, there's like already rituals that exist. And I'm sure that the mushroom rituals are super important to like all of the pagan rites. But are you saying you think it also plays into Saint Nicholas Christianity, or how far is that connected?
The red and the white, the coming down the chimney, the hanging the stockings over the fire, the putting the presents under the tree. specifically a conifer tree, all of those indicate that Santa Claus is a mushroom. Like let's go for the stockings really quick. It's like hung by the chimney with care, right? Well, when you would take these Amanita muscaria mushrooms or equivalent, like the soma, one of the ways that you can help it so that you don't just eat it raw and immediately start getting sick is that you can heat it sort of, but you can't just put it directly onto fire. So in order to help the natural process, you would hang it near like a fireplace, for example, and that would help facilitate the process to get it into a more ingestible sort of medium. And every one of those things that I mentioned, going down the chimney, when you had like the shaman that would go and everyone's houses are boarded up with snow, so they would have to come in through the chimney to do their trades for the year. Anyways, I really think that Santa was a mushroom.
So
is Gremlins like a bad trip then?
Gremlins
Like
is
God, we need to do it.
Gremlins is a real Gremlins is like the most, if we're going to talk about capitalism, right? Gremlins is talking about the consumerism, right? Because it consumes father. It consumes the father of Christmas, the actual I mean, I don't know. If you haven't seen the Gremlins,
it starts in a bank. The opening scene starts at a bank.
That's true. Oh, every part of Gremlins is steeped in symbolism. Every single part, and Gremlins 2 as well.
To your point, Tom, about just another mushroom parallel there would be, I would just imagining the Christmas presents, they kind of pop up overnight like mushrooms, right?
Exactly. And it's usually around the circumference of a conifer
of the tree.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
okay,
then-
I'll give you
So,
that.
You know, it's
truth in
the
plain sight.
boxes, you know, that's something that Kubrick does a lot about in his movies, is the symbol of the box and how intimately tied into Christmas it is, because the presents come in boxes, of course.
And what shape do you form when you open up a box? It forms into a cross, does it not?
It does, yeah, exactly. The cube of space or whatever that they
That is
Oh yeah, you tie the ribbon too. It's very much across on the top. I dig it.
in a
Yeah.
2D, you know, you draw a cube in 2D on paper. The outline is a hexagon,
Right.
so it's so it's like
What-
the inner part of the star.
And
David.
not to just completely quote astro shamanism or astrotheology. I can't remember what the book's exact
citations
name is.
are great.
But I can go and grab it for a second. But if you go and look at like all the old school Christmas cards and postcards and stuff, they would always have these little Amanita muscaria, specifically mushrooms, just kind of like, oh, why are there these little like miniature Santa looking dwarfs leaning up against
Right.
this red and white speckled mushroom?
It's
And
also
was
when it rains,
because-
it's spores, right?
And and
Yes.
also, you know what kind of animal that the shamans back in the day
Reindeer.
actually used? The freaking reindeer, dude, because the reindeer would eat the mushrooms, and then I guess somebody ate the yellow snow and was like, hey, you know, like we can get from A to B without having to go through C first, C being violent vomiting and everything else.
So like I just want to interject like the Slavic issue here, which is that like for most of us who were not raised in maybe Northern Europe or the United States before a certain, I don't know, it seems like it's blue Santa Claus for most of the Slavic people. We have Dead Moroz, which means Father Winter essentially, or Father Frost, and it's this blue kind of character. When Coca-Cola started producing the red Santa Claus, that became through America, like everyone says Santa Claus is red now, but it wasn't always that Santa Claus was super red.
The hat's still red with a little white spot on it.
I think because these days the kids are used to like capitalist Santa Claus, so it becomes more and more of a thing.
Well,
But again,
well,
the Phrygian cap is often red, so that's fair. It could be.
Well, keep in mind that when you press into a mushroom, that's the way to tell if it turns purple or bluish.
Oh, if it turns blue.
Well, that's
The
specifically
good
psilocybe mushroom, right? That's not the
Sure.
same application.
That's
to
like, yeah,
Not
way
true
more-
for Amanita. No.
way more
Mhm.
hardcore though than an Amanita. I mean, I've heard whatever. So super chat from David M. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I just want to pull up like, so considering the Santa Claus idea of the red Santa Claus, I think that's interesting because Coca-Cola had appropriated so many symbols already. And so they're also not just appropriating Santa Claus, they are appropriating the Amanita muscaria mushroom because they're saying this is an epigenetic ritual you can do by drinking Coca-Cola. You don't know what's in the bottle. It's a secret recipe, but it's an elixir, right? It's this bubbly caramel drink that's going to change your life. I find that to be like the corporate Amanita muscaria version.
Right.
Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Well,
You go.
I guess the thing that I think about with Coca-Cola, it's like also Coca-Cola. It's just also iconic, but because of Mad Men and all that. But the other mascot with Santa are the bears, so Santa hangs out with the bears at the North Pole, the polar bears, and drinks Coke, and it's weird, but yeah, there's a lot about that, like, to go in with Mad Men, but if you,
Sure.
well, we lost Thomas.
Well, he's coming back. I got a couple super chats like, whoa, people are amazing. Text spread sent a heart. I love you, man. Or is that a kiss? I can't tell anymore because like space is sideways. It could be both. And then also Kalex, Pika Kalex, which is awesome. I appreciate that, man. That's super cool. And David's going back with another. He's sending me to mushroom emojis, emojis, something like that. Well, okay. While he's figuring that out, I just wanted to celebrate a victory. Whoa. So if you guys had seen what I was going through recently with the copyright strike situation, so I made this like ages ago, got the complete rights to do this, right? And then all of a sudden I got this copyright violation randomly on my video, and it was because Orchard Music, right, had gone and they have let me find there it is. Orchard Music had sent me this thing by accident. They have this copyright strike for their music. They have a cover of the song that came out like much more recently in Spanish, and they could hear the backtrack that they had rights to in my song. And rather than go through the proper procedures and like talk to me, they just sort of like try to take my video. And I was super annoyed. And I was like, what do I do? Because they wouldn't respond. It's like really hard to get in touch with Orch tweets, I guess, because there's no way to do it. So I just started like posting on like every single thing that they've ever had, all of my like cease and desist, return that, boom, Orchard Music, do you make a habit of false copyright claims, etc. for like a week.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I did this on Instagram and on their YouTube things. And then finally, just today, it was released properly. And I was like, I can't wait until I can stop worrying about intellectual property and I can get on the Soviet bus and start picking strawberries, right?
Oh, is this I see the sunscreen image that you had there. Is this the speech that the professor made? Is that included?
Yeah,
in the
totally.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm using the professor's speech video with total rights to it, and then they were trying to take away like the rights because someone else had a thing to it, and try to exploit it because they have a cover of it where they have the rights to a cover of it, I guess.
Right.
I don't know. I found that horrible. Hey, wait, here's a book. Did you find this book?
Yeah, I found what I was looking for. So this is so references are good. This is Astro. Let me set this.
Dang! All of a sudden, Kalex sends in a $10, which is a pretty sweet donation. Thank you, bro. That's beautiful. Look at that. It matches the color of Pikachu, which is one of my favorite colors.
Pikachu smoking a cigarette, no doubt.
I don't know. It could be crack, and we'll get into that later.
So yeah, Astro's theology and shamanism, but they've got an entire chapter on how the mushroom is influenced or how holiday symbolism is influenced. And unfortunately, this is a black and white edition, but here's one of the sort of like reference images. But they've got a lot of like really cool versions of it.
The trick is you have to actually eat the Amanita to see it in color, which is the plan.
Right.
So this one, it starts out as Easter. So they make the argument that when you would send the children out to find the hidden Easter eggs, they were really looking for the beginnings of mushrooms to know where the mushrooms were going to be. And that's why you've got some of the symbolism of, see how this dude's like perched up on one of these amanitas?
Oh, yeah.
And then he's talking to this Easter bunny dude.
And then there.
Here we've got a 17th century image. And this one says, symbolism of the egg is important mythology. Sun represented the great yolk inside of this cosmic egg.
That cosmic egg, it's what it's all about all the time, isn't it? It's just all about that cosmic egg.
And then here's the actual stages of growth.
Cracking the cosmic egg.
So when you talk about it looking like, I guess like an Easter egg, right? Here's what it looks like as it starts to poke up. And then
Easter.
There you've got it.
So
this is kind of what they're looking for originally before the cap separates. Then there's the canopy stage, which is basically when the veil gets pierced. That's that little veil hanging down. And then they're going to show images of like the Pope and stuff that basically look very similar to even how that veil looks. And this is a picture. This is not an illustration. And then like, this is getting into some, like, just showing the texture. So here's the red with the white dots all over it as it matures. Here's a little picture of Jesus. And then here we go. So we've got this little Smurf cabin, which they basically live in one of these amanitas. Here's an old holiday card that I was mentioning. And look, the dude's like attaching amanita specifically to a door handle here. And they go into Santa Claus in particular. Here's another old Christmas card.
Of course,
Here's a
there's the
picture.
elves as well, and the machine
Whoa.
elf.
Another
thing.
$12. Amazing. We
Jeez.
love Pikachu. Pikachu
Go
loves
put
you.
some of that at the Paranoid American Patreon. Appreciate
He
it.
just
Okay.
says, "Is that Thomas? I love Paranoid American." And you.
And look, there
Yeah.
you go. Here's the one of my favorite pictures in this entire book. And I know how easy it is to just find images that look similar and put them next to each other. And here's one, and it's one of my favorites.
Word.
That's really good.
And
Did
then,
they
yeah.
have a mushroom cloud in there somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, the mushroom cloud's not in this particular section. It's all about
Right.
holiday symbolism. And then here's an example of one of these yurts. And these yurts, this is a modern day version, obviously, but like a much older version of one of these yurts is that the snow would just build up around the side and you would just go in through the top. And this is where the shamans would come in and kind of like trade their goods for the year. So they would storm up during the spring, essentially, you know, like when the Easter Bunny's out. They'd collect them, and then when winter comes, you're probably not going to see a lot of naturally occurring ones growing. So if you ever had to have some, or if the medicine man had to come through and, you know, solve your problems mentally or physically, he was probably going to come into your yurt through the top, through where like maybe a chimney might be if it were a modern house. And then here's just more fun pictures next to pictures. But Santa Claus is a mushroom.
See, these are Santa's helpers, though. That's what I'm thinking. It's like all those dudes at the mall. They're
That's
based
it.
on
And then
this
it
guy.
gets into more fun stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I highly recommend this one if you like any of that stuff. That was just some of the section on holiday in particular.
But it's like, again, like, so that's not the, you know, like, again, so as a Croatian, when I think of Christmas, I'm thinking of St. Arius getting slapped in the face. Why is this not what other people are telling their children? That's what it
I
should be
don't
like.
know
And
that
once
story.
upon, really?
I don't-
Well,
I don't know that story.
let's do it.
I'm ignorant.
So what one of the comments, or actually several that I got, which is funny because most people are going to be like, "Yeah, Andreas, good job, Andreas." No, some people are like, "Arius isn't a saint; he's a heretic." You know, I can't do an impression of the internet, but
That's what the internet sounds like.
it does, right? It's like rah, 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 rah. Have you seen the Peanuts?
Like
by the
Charlie
way?
Brown, yeah.
Don't make me cry. I'm not ready to get into that yet. I'm going to do a whole thing on the Peanuts. But but with the heretic, it's an interesting thing because it started out as a word that meant free to choose, right? Herasis is from Greek. It means like to seize or to grab an apple or something like that. And so there's a lot of this kind of Neoplatonic thought at that time. And heresy just meant to be in a school of thought. To be a heretic meant to be like a philosopher with your own school of thought. Okay. And then St. Augustine says, dude, there's these heretics who are different than us. And that introduces in the 4th century, he starts saying these schools of thought, they're incongruent with secular Catholicism. Okay. So all of a sudden, secular Catholicism is the mainstream and they've got a way of thinking. And if you don't believe that, you're falling out of order, but it's also spreading so fast that it doesn't even have control over what it believes. And people are believing all sorts of crazy things. But one of the big ones is that Jesus is God, and he's like the Trinity starts to emerge. The idea that Jesus has always been there. Jesus has been there since the beginning when God said, Jesus was holding his hand like, yeah, Dad, let's do it. Like that's Trinitarianism. And Arius was like, he's a Berber from North Africa who was a Greek, essentially. I mean, he's in a Hellenistic state of mind. He's very much a part of the Greek society and the Cynic society. And he's not a Trinitarian, right? He's thinking like, okay, God creates the universe or like whatever happens. But then after that, God is reflective and God has a son. And this son is God restrained in the beast's form of humanity, etc. So it's very different. And this is important to people all over the Mediterranean. So all of a sudden, everyone on the East Coast, so I'm talking Croatia, Montenegro, like all those places, that's the kind of Christian they were. They were non-Trinitarian, and they believed that Jesus was this, reflective creation of God, and it happened later. And then the Trinitarians are like, well, I'm going to kill you, right? Like, we got to burn this, like, literally, let's burn this guy alive. That was actually the order they had for Arius, which didn't happen because a lot of other Christians liked him. And so it just caused this major divide. And Trinitarians continued to spread, particularly into places where they conquered and forced out Islam. So like in Spain, you have further Trinitarians that start to emerge. And eventually Trinitarianism that's what the Catholic Church believes. So that's what you have to do. Like Jesus is God and that's it. But they poison Arius. And so the pictures of him dying are like him bleeding out the bowels, right? As he's like vomiting. Because they're like, and everyone's like, this is such a bizarre painting. Well, it's not that bizarre if you know that they poisoned the guy. But that's the major thing. So at a council meeting, I think in Nicaea, but I could be wrong. It could have been Synia. He's talking with St. Nicholas, and St. Nicholas is talking about the Trinity, and he's really into Augustine, and he believes in his, ambrosia, everything, right? And he's more and more upset, and all of a sudden, St. Nicholas is like, what you're saying is, beyond heresy. You're talking heathenry, because you're saying that Jesus is essentially a man. And then Arius says, no, what you're doing is you're turning Jesus into this immaterial, you're using Docetism, right? You're creating Docetism, you're creating this, this character that cannot be matched by humanity. And this is a very important moment because either this is about us trying to be like this character, or it's about how he's dead and we can use that to be immortal because we sacrifice the God Son. And we're using his blood for this ritual. And this is an important moment. And I don't think we're supposed to do that. I think that, and he's like, but if you're saying that, then you're saying that Paul and all these people who killed all these people and broke all these rules, that they might not go to heaven, and that we're not actually following like the life of Christ, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. And then Arius is like, yeah, that's what I said. And Nicholas slaps him across the freaking face.
Well, isn't that like indicative of like, that seems like that's the crux of the entire issue in a sense, because like for me, it's like, I wouldn't argue that Saint Nick is meant to be Nick, Satan, Santa, Satan per se. I would say that there's a perfect dichotomy that exists with what's become of Christmas as a celebration, everything involved. I highly recommend Life Against Death by Norman O'Brown in a section on Christmas. It's incredible about the psychology that goes into what is the role of Christmas as it relates to sins. And so and the idea of gift giving, what it essentially amounts to and what it's become in consumer culture and our treatment and our attitudes towards it. Also like that film Krampus, it really does kind of like communicate the point, because you have the spirit of Christmas. And what is the spirit of Christmas? It's just spirituality in the first place. And Christmas is just a celebration of that spirituality, essentially. But then you have this kind of like, this perversion of it that is very normalized in society, which is symptomatic of a deeper relationship. So even if you were just to do like the Krishnamurti bit around the organized religion versus what the religion essentially is, and the distinctions there, like a lot of this is just due to preachers who when people were so illiterate for so long, telling them what the Bible says, some of which didn't even actually read it themselves. They're going to tell you what it all means from what they want it to mean, and what kind of this kind of, I don't know, this kind of manipulative kind of treatment of what this is about and what their motivations were. But like if you look at the actual messages of the gospel, you'll find very little of that, in organized Christianity. And like even if you were just to not even put ourselves in the place, but just look at the conquistadors and all of the justifications for what they were doing, and what did that have to do with Christianity ultimately. So yeah.
Open question, but do you guys think that capitalism destroyed Christmas, or is it just that like culture deteriorates some sort of a pastime or like a holiday?
Unless you change the term to consumerism, because like I would say capitalism doesn't really like, I wouldn't be Zizek about it.
But like,
No,
capitalism
I-
isn't. All right, let's start with redefining capitalism. First off, capitalism hasn't existed in centuries, and like the last example I can think of is Native Americans. Native Americans
Thank
who are
you.
trying to get a buffalo out of a field of buffalo, and there's plenty more bison coming, and they make a bunch of jackets. That's capitalism, and hasn't happened for centuries. Now
I'm
we have
sorry, yeah.
now
I
now
might
we
watch
have
my words.
Europeans have never tried capitalism.
God,
All
this is
Europeans
going
have
out of
ever had is
control.
mercantilism, feudalism, serfdom, and of course barbarism. And they've had robbers and barons and taxes, tariffs, highway merchants. Anyway, mercantilism is different. Militancy is the main thing. Militancy. So you have feudalism where lords are put in charge. You either have a dictatorship with the majority oppressing the minority, or minority oppressing the majority, whatever kind of benevolent dictatorship you want. And then they're working on mercantilism, which means that they have a feudal system where they try to afford as little as possible back to the system in order to have it sustainable. Because what's the point of running the world if you can't do it sustainably? So that's not capitalism. I'd like to see it.
I couldn't agree more. And when I use terms, speaking of Krishnamurti, the description is not the described. And like we throw terms around, and I just found myself doing it. And I'm catching myself as I'm talking, because capitalism in and of itself is one thing. Corruption is another. And so, and I hate to say it, but when people say like we haven't tried real communism, people say the same thing. We haven't tried real capitalism. Well, there's actually truth to that. I don't think that there's truth to the way that people are often saying that, because their relationship to what that means for them is this other kind of ideal. But the problem is corruption. I'm going to be Captain Obvious over here, but it's not it's not the system itself. It's what people do in the midst of it.
All right, you answered it before I got the full thing out, but you already got the answer in. But like is it let's say consumerism? I know capitalism was going to be the trigger word for the day, but like consumerism, is it
you will get in gulag? Sorry.
Is it that consumerism ruined Christmas, or is it that Christmas was always going to be ruined and we just happen to be in a consumerist phase?
I don't think
everything is being ruined. Everything has been ruined and assimilated by the system. So.
But I don't think
everything's
Christmas.
kind of deteriorating.
If
I don't
it's
think
not
it's
losing the spirit in order to go out and shop and get deals and give things, and
I don't know if that's all so bad. I don't know if like George Bush was evil when he told us after September 11th to shop. I think actually at a certain level that might be part of the free market form.
Like
like
go out, getting there. Yeah.
Go out and make your choices. Be free to make decisions. Like they lower the price of gas at just the right time so that you can put more money back into the economy. I get that it's evil and all that, but it seems like it's so associated with a mother's love for a child that it's hard not. It's like there's better ways to do it. I get that, but it always seems to fall into being if it wasn't more beneficial, we wouldn't do it. We wouldn't keep sustaining it. I think.
Hey, in the mushroom thing. Okay, can we just address
that?
I think we got a bunch of super chats. I want to just really say, whoa, I got a $20 super chat from Joseph Betcher. Listen to stories of Krampus from my German grandmother, and her accent was a nightmare fuel as a kid. And it's also made you a better person, I bet you.
The German?
Love to Oma. Stoic Fitness, 4.99. EOC super chat mentioned. I don't even know what that means. Okay, cool. I love you.
So when we're talking about the psychedelics and we're talking about the mushrooms, like we treat it that this is this external thing that you take, and you know like the relationship to substances in general, like what is it, like like we're filled with chemicals. We have these, like it's always this weird thing where you're like there's the outer and then there's the inner, and the treatment of like what drugs are and you know versus entheogens even, but it's like you like we found, you know, like maybe not lysergic acid, but like DMT, we found that exists in the body in the first place. So if you're like, oh, if you like the treatment of like you take something from outside and you bring it inside, but I would argue that like when I say the spirit of Christmas and you're showing these old depictions of the mushrooms and stuff, it's like the psychedelic like nature of like what we essentially are in the first place, like that openness. And it's also like the dark season and like the mushrooms that come, it's like something that carries you through this period, or historically, culturally has. It's the Dionysian throng, is it not?
Oh,
and
it
like,
is.
What is Christmas in terms of culture now, but the Apollonian movement of structure and the problems, like Apollo is literally the destroyer.
It's the marriage of
only
Vesta.
in the extreme.
It's the inversion.
Right.
It's the marriage of Vesta, because in the origin, you have a rite of passage where you expand the worldview, right? You're changing things so you see more. In today's reality, what you do is you start the child off with this fantasy, and then you can't deliver. It comes to a point where it's an inversion. All of a sudden you lose so much of your reality. And that isn't great, but it's also maybe very useful because everything about your like real or Orwellian real world is a lie, right? And your parents can't even accept that yet. So it's very useful for children to be made aware at an early age. Everyone's going to be lying to you. The people who you love might not even know they're lying to you.
All
They
in
might
on it. Even Nana and Pop
yeah.
Pop, they're in on it.
They might
The way
think they're
it
supposed
parallels like the myths of politics and like JFK, the magic bullet, and 9/11, and how it parallels the story. We're primed from childhood to learn to accept a lie, which is sort of a cliched thought at this point, but it's
That's why the
nevertheless
slap of
true.
St. Arius matters so much. Okay, really
Yeah.
quickly, like the reason I wanted to bring up Lucifer, right? Or because Lucifer
What?
Cagliari. Have we
This is a
talked about
segue.
Lucifer Cagliari was a bishop in Sardinia, right? So again, along the Mediterranean coast, right there, who's passionate for his opposition to Arianism, and so he was
Check
essentially.
that death date.
Where's the death date?
May 2370.
Oh, nice. Very good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's really important because he was hyper opposed to Arius, but he was banished by the church, and he was he wanted to be the Pope, and he opposed Bishop Meletius, who was from Antioch. I don't know, a lot of stuff happened that led to us associating Lucifer. Like by the time of Erasmus, when they just left the name Lucifer in the Bible, when they translated phosphore, right? Instead of saying morning star or bright star or anything like that, leaving the title Lucifer, it was at a time when people were associating it with this bishop Lucifer. So he was really unliked at the time. And they're like, oh, he's kind of like the devil. And also the way that people thought of the Pope was the voice of God, but he was God. Like he could write his name, God, realistically, and like if he spoke, they're like, this is God who spoke. And so at that time it was almost like the Bible, they're like, this is God breathed. So all of that was happening, like all this stuff where you're kind of forced to believe something isn't true, that this person isn't just a pure vehicle of God, like it's clearly not the case. That was being forced. So it is really similar to Christmas, because you have this idea of like, you all just have to believe in this, right? And if you're good, it'll be great, and if you're not, damned.
I'm thinking to myself, what's the symbolism of the elves? And immediately I'm visualizing Terrence McKenna just being like, well, obviously.
Let me pull up the. Do you want to do Argentina?
Well, I just want to say too, like the whole Santa shattering reality and being this like prime. I remember that when I found out, I'm not going to say the whole thing for all the kiddies that are watching. Won't spoil the magic. When I found that out, it was
that
the
Jesus
same
was
time
black.
but that I also heard this. I think it was like a stand up in the mid '90s or the early '90s. But they were talking about how if the Pope really believes in God, then why does he drive around in the bulletproof glass car? And that always rocked my world. Like I understand why he does it.
That's the reason.
I mean, maybe my barrier for entrance.
For me,
is
it was
low.
like, obviously he's a sinner. Like it was the thing. Like the Pope is clearly, that's the thing. It's the proof that the Pope is lying, not that he doesn't believe in God. Like if I believed in God and I was the Pope, I would be dodging bullets. Are you kidding me? Like it's like the Pope is clearly done a lot. I mean, I don't want to even talk about it. What? He's been involved with a lot of bad things. Let's say allegedly. I didn't say that. What?
Which
Has he
Pope?
been
Oh my
pirating
God,
software?
right?
This Pope is above any. I mean, you saw he was actually washing the bishop's feet, not just like
Right.
like.
It's all going to
know,
come back to
no.
Argentina. So, dude, Freemasonry, Vatican, you saw this, right? So the Vatican reaffirmed right before the election in Argentina that, and it's definitely connected, that, where does it say? That the Vatican reaffirms grave sin of Freemasonry. It says Catholics cannot join the world's largest secret society. Sorry, Thomas. So apparently, yeah, no, this is dumb. Like, but
That's a big deal.
And everyone's like, why? And they're like,
It's
why
just
would
status quo though? This has been the same thing since the 18th century.
But they
This is not
didn't
new.
care about the order of the pug, and they made exceptions. We all know that. Like everything, this is all because of the Jesuit suppression. And when the Jesuits returned to power, they had to have checks and balances to make sure that they had alternatives to the Vatican. And so they created an auxiliary that could not be a member of one organization to be in the other. Essentially, that was a major aspect of this. However, at this point, it matters again because of propaganda. Right? Banda do, which is the Italian Freemason lodge, which is unaccepted by most Freemason lodges around the world at this point because of their association with the mafia, etc. But they're also involved with the Holy See, and in the 90s it was discovered like their major connection to the crime and what the deal is with the Mafit, right? Because like the Mafit was from the Ottoman period to protect, right? So Propaganda do, big in Argentina. They took the hands and skull of Juan Perón, and then they just were saying right before this election that Freemasons can't join. And it's really interesting because like Malay, I don't know if he's a Freemason, but when I lived in Argentina, let me see if we can find. So I used to go all the time. This was my neighborhood, which is like the Palermo Hollywood, which is where they keep a lot of the white people and the expats. Like, and granted, almost everyone is white. I just mean to say, like, British people. There were British people that lived in this neighborhood, which was British people don't belong in Argentina. If you know what they did, like the Maldives, and they would go to this place called the Dog, and we'd get these great, like they had this crazy kind of curried ketchup that was really good. Anyway, there it is right there. It's really great. Good chori pan. But you'd honestly rather go to Oogie's Pizza because it was super cheap. Right in this neighborhood, there's the Kabbalah Center, right? Did I find that picture? Where was that at? Kabbalah
so
Center.
many tabs, man. Look at you. How many tabs are there? How are you even spelling?
Who even knows? But so the Kabbalah Center. So I used to go to this Kabbalah Center because they had yoga and they had some interesting classes. And Malay is a member of the Buenos Aires Kabbalah Center and went to this. So I never met him as far as I can recall at this thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was in one of these classes.
Does this have any affiliation with the Kabbalah Society? That like, you know, Madonna and all.
It really feels kind of in that vibe, but I don't know because I think that honestly there are enough Argentinian, Polish Jews and Czech Jews that are into the Kabbalah that they have their own society.
It's probably actual Kabbalah.
It's super real. Yeah, okay. It's a great and like the lessons are, you know, incredible, and it's, you know, but it's definitely reminds me of the LA Center, and it's doing the same thing. It has an outreach program that's similar to that, and they're converting lots of people that were raised Catholic but then fell into socialists, atheism and secularism, and then now they're finding out about metaphysics, and they're like, oh, the Kabbalah, obviously.
Well, you can kind of know if it's in the same vein by, for example, if they're like just having a copy of the Zohar, like you don't have to understand it at all. It's just looking at the letters will have its impact or whatever, you know. Or if they're very focused on manifestation above other things, like it's a matter of like what they put first. So if they're just very material focused, you're like, okay, yeah, this is.
Yeah, I see the material focus in doing yoga, but I don't want to pigeon-point him because it's been years since I've been there. But you know, I think the thing is, though, it is reaching out to the secular crowd, and it's interesting that the president now of Argentina has said, amongst other things, that he's super into the Kabbalah, that he's super into becoming Jewish. He's not technically, he says, a member yet because he's not sure how he could work on Shabbat, you know, like what he's going to do about that yet, because he doesn't have, unless he gets automation set up in a certain way, so he doesn't have to.
Wait,
just threw me for a loop about him, you know?
He was considering, like, yeah, he wants to follow the tenets. Yeah. So, I mean, that's interesting. Why would you want to follow the rules unless you feel like the rules are consequentialist routines that lead to what your goals, right? He's probably thinking it's going to turn him into a different kind of person, and he said a lot of things about that.
I would be more interested in what he has to say about BlackRock than I would be interested in anything that he has to say on the Jewish religion per se. Like, you know,
and he probably would scream "Death to BlackRock."
I don't know about that. I don't know about that because
it's all changing and morphing. Like when he first came out. And I stand him because he was saying that the central bank was a scam and he was kind of promoting sound, honest money and that kind of thing. Now he's won, and I have to get, I'm like, well, why would they let him win if he was really going to be changing anything? And so my thought goes to, well, maybe he's being set up, you know, to fail. So that
they can say, see, libertarianism
exactly
with rulers.
And just bring another.
I mean, how could Argentina get any
down more?
I don't know. And I love Argentina. So I've been
Man,
talking.
we're
I'll
maybe
start
that's it.
arguing with Boludos in Argentina on the internet right now. I'll be like, dude, I lived in your neighborhood. Relax. Like, come on, Boludo, por favor. Like, don't have to. Let's be honest here, though. Like, there's a lot of problems right now, and the collapse of the state isn't any different than yesterday. The state was already collapsed yesterday. Be realistic. And so
Right, but Andreas, what if it was like you say, could it not get any worse? What about Mozambique? What about it's like the meme of the that I have in my head of like the kids in the latrine in Schindler's List, and you're like, well, it couldn't get any worse. It's like
Dude,
it could be worse. I guess
there are
you know.
homeless kids in Argentina that live off Coca-Cola 3-liter bottles and crack. And that's about what they get in certain places. And it's not everywhere, but it's definitely like a problem that's existed for at least 30, 40 years, and it's not been solved by the state. So I mean,
I'm not going to talk like I actually know what I'm talking about with
the reason there are a
Argentina.
lot, the reason there was anywhere, the reason that a lot of people are alive now is because, I mean, granted, it would be living in a better circumstance if there was some sort of fascistic government's water fountain, but they don't have that. So they end up with Coca-Cola coming in, and Coca-Cola bottles the water, and Coca-Cola bottles the Coca-Cola, and it's cheaper to buy the Coca-Cola. And they're living off of that essentially, and that's what they do is they try to get just enough Coca-Cola to survive. I mean, it's not again, there's a lot of people in Argentina that it's like 40 million people, and 90% of them live in one city. So there are people that are happy in their homes, but basically everyone's lost every single banking crisis, everything. It happens every generation. It happened in 2001. It happened in 1973. It happened in the 40s and then 1890s. It continually repeats as soon as they have an accumulation of wealth. So the other thing is Argentina's built and created so many things. They've created radio, like an Italian inventor, but from Argentina, the heart double bypass surgery, brain surgeries, like all kinds of technology, certain kinds of electric cars and gasoline cars. It's it's crazy to think about what kind of Germans and Italians and Dutch have gone down to Argentina and became part of what proliferated as like a great economy. So I get his idea that like you could let corporations in to replace the state, because the state is like a very randist solution. Let the Argentinians do it because they have the capacity to invent new solutions. The problem is there's already all these other corporations, and he seems really gung-ho and working with specific countries. Similar to Ukraine is really interested in Israel. He's really interested in Israel. He calls himself a Zionist. And I think it does matter in the context, because if the Zionist Israeli companies are the companies he's planning on working with, that leads to a very specific, that's beyond BlackRock, that's Black Cube, right? That's like the Mossad military complex. And just from my experience in Argentina, they do have nuclear secrets. They do have a lot of really important information. And like I was working at the Atomic Research Center of Bariloche, and in the last 4 to 5 years since I've been there, they've actually built a new atomic research center that was financed by the Chinese government, right? And so this is all relevant, that they're saying we're going to cut off ties with the Chinese government, and then we're going to put this in the hands of whatever corporations that we want to work with, and if they don't have corporate, like it's going to come from, that is kind of the concern with Argentina.
Interesting. Weren't you bringing up Argentina like a couple months ago, less than that? I feel like this has been a topic at one point in these discussions, but
I do love Argentina.
Well,
I wanted to move there again.
Route 237 was runs
right.
by the compound. Or
That's
whatever,
true.
Bariloche.
That's true. Route 237 is right there, right by that place.
Read Joseph Farrell's Nazi International series. You can learn a lot about Bariloche's connection to the nuclear secrets and hidden economy and all that stuff.
I want to go back, but I ended up working at Timcast instead. But I mean, I don't know. So where was the thing I want to post? This is the video that he said. This is like him being awesome enough. That's right.
Dios, yo no voy a la iglesia, voy al templo. No hablo con sacerdote. Tengo un rabino de cabecera. Estudio la Torá. Digamos, se me reconoce internacionalmente como amigo de Israel y estudioso de la Torá, que es casi, digamos, como, digamos, yo estoy a poco, ¿no?
De ser judío.
Sí, exacto. Yo solamente me falta el pacto de sangre.
Sí, claro.
Bueno, si hay alguien que pelea contra eso, soy yo.
Claro.
Entonces,
de hecho, perdón, ¿no te atacan porque tenés posiciones geopolíticas muy cercanas con Israel? ¿No es al revés?
Claro.
También me atacan por eso. Bueno, claro. A ver, yo ni lo sabe. Pero una de las cosas que yo propuse, digo, además de alinearme con Israel y con Estados Unidos, una de las cosas que yo dije es, yo quiero mudar la embajada desde Tel Aviv.
Right, so the religious move of the embassy to from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, right? And so,
Right.
why is that always so relevant? Like, why? What's the deal with moving the temple?
Well,
What's
it
that have
depends
to do
on who
with
you
the
talk to.
Argentinians?
It depends. Well, we did the same. So he's saying he's aligning himself with the U.S. and that move of the embassy was what Trump was, more than a part of. And
Right.
so that's why it depends on who you talk to. Which Israelis or people who you speak to about it, they're going to have widely different conceptions of that. Now, the 33 million Zionist Christians in the U.S., they have their own reasons generally for why they want to see that happen, and it's steeped in ideas around prophecy. And so, I don't know the particulars of what he wants, but I know why Mike Pence might want it, considering his own religious beliefs.
Oh.
So, depends on who you talk to.
Eschatology.
Fucking idea.
You think it's eschatology? Like the idea of the end of the world? Like they want it there for that, or is it more?
There was, yeah. There's this whole.
I feel like
kind of
with Malay, he's kind of doing a thing. He's playing politics and telling people what they want to hear, or certain people what they want to hear, which is the exact same thing Trump did, which he just said everything that everybody wanted to hear, and so it's the same kind of tactic. But I have no idea what he's really up to. But the fact that he, in one thing, says he wants to destroy the central banking scam, but is also like huge proponent of the government of Israel. I don't understand. There seems to be a contradiction.
Totally.
somewhere.
Do you remember when Mitch McConnell spoke during the impeachment hearings of Donald Trump and had some very harsh words to say about Trump and got very intense about it? All of a sudden, it's like, wow, Mitch, you really feel strongly about this. But how did he vote? You know what I mean? Like he said what he said, and then he voted against the impeachment. So say what you will. I mean, whatever your position there happens to be. But the fact is that where does it matter? You can say anything you want to. Like if sorry to do this, but if RFK Jr. had bad things to say about Monsanto, that would be one thing. Now that what he started has actually come to fruition, and Monsanto has now been held accountable, and you see it in their stock. It's like Monsanto. Oh yeah, whatever. So like Monsanto.
Just
I see, Nico, I see you in the chat. Just hit me up in the Discord though, and we should get you on. Like, let's get a Bluto's perspective. That sounds great.
Yeah. So it's a matter of words. Mean one thing, actions mean another, and when you see how people vote, it's one thing. And I'm not interested so much in what politicians have to say, but what have I seen their actions? If you tell people what they want to hear, he's talking about the central bank. That's exactly what you as a listener is wanting to see addressed. So he's speaking to that.
Max Kaiser, he's aligned with El Salvador and Bukele, who've adopted a Bitcoin standard, and they're like, "Oh, all right, let's go, man. We're gonna hook up and let's go." Yeah, and I'm kind of get the feeling that it's like that's not gonna work out. Which will say a lot. If it did, that'd be cool, but I kind of get the feeling it won't be. Well, because crypto had a big thing happen today. I don't know if you guys know about that. But.
Oh yeah, what's going on with crypto today?
Oh well, CZ and Binance were charged by the U.S. government, and he's stepping down. They're fined $4 billion, and so it's
Is this good for Bitcoin?
Everything's good for Bitcoin, but
publicity is good publicity for Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure. And any tests of strength, the more slings and arrows it takes, the stronger it gets, etc.
Is this not a form of government regulation of a decentralized currency, or does it?
It has nothing to do with Bitcoin because they're not. They're completely related. Binance is just a crypto. It's like a bank. They're suing a bank for basically running an unregulated securities exchange for the last 6 years and laundering billions of dollars but I think the real reason is because of the Sam Bankman-Fried thing, which is about a year anniversary now, because the guy CZ, he basically was the guy that popped that bubble with FTX, and basically exposed that whole
And the
thing
Chinese
for-
government's super in Binance, and the likelihood that they're doing the
Yeah,
exact same
probably.
thing as the CIA and
No,
FTX,
yeah.
like
Yeah, I
trying
mean,
to
it's
keep
all-
Bitcoin
it's all
down.
geopolitical stuff, but yeah, Bitcoin as an independent network has nothing. It's not really affected at all. But crypto as a space is going to be like Ethereum might be, and all the other altcoins might be starting to be regulated even stronger. So anyway, that's all. The timing with Millet coming into power and this finally happening, which people have been talking about this happening for years, so it's kind of like a big
Yeah,
thing.
you have to wonder how he's going to work with Bukele also. But before we get to Bukele's connection,
Yeah, they
I just
probably
wanna
will
say-
sue them next.
I hope to God. But all right, so Commission Nacional de Energia Atomica is like, so we talked about Route 237 and my time spent in Argentina. And it's an interesting location for one thing. It's also like the earliest known atomic reactor and the first fusion project, not in Germany, not in Russia, not in the United States, but in Argentina. So
Really?
rather interesting. And they have a linear accelerator, but also, right, they built, where did I put the thing here? Here's the, I'll get to Niesman another time. Atucha nuclear power plant, which is the one I was saying is built, the newest one. And I used to spend a decent amount of time up in this area because if you look at it, right here is the Iguazu water fall and power plant, right, which is an amazing location right here. It's actually like one of the biggest. I think it is the biggest. Is it bigger than the Victoria Falls in Africa? They're like competing in size, but it also is where the Iguazu hydroelectric dam is, which powers I think 40% or more. It used to be 60 or 90, but now it's like probably 40% of all of South America is powered just by this one dam. It's powering Uruguay, Brazil, Argentina. Like they're all getting their energy from this dam. So I find that also interesting because a lot of people don't believe in nuclear power being what we're told it is, right? And that this is right on an area where they're able to get all of the energy and power that they'll ever need from the hydroelectric dam, and that it's built by the Chinese for them. But with Milei destroying all the government agencies, right? Afuera. If he's going to throw out the government of transportation, all right, that's one thing. But if you're going to throw out the Atomic Research Agency, then what happens and who gets it, right? And so that's why I keep thinking like this is a bigger deal, because what happens with state secrets when you decide you're going to start leasing your power plants? You know, like that's what do you think?
Yeah. You know what? One thing I'll tell you, Andreas, I always have a lot to say, but one thing I like about participating in this show is that I always learn things. So you're telling me things I'm not familiar with and I did not know. So thank you.
Good way of saying I have no idea.
Fair enough, but I mean,
how I feel.
I don't know either. Like, I mean, the thing is, like, the real crux of it is state-run government protects against corporations. Corporations need to be free from the state so they can do their thing. This is a paradox. So I don't know. This is
I don't really believe in the idea of a corporation. So the whole corporate personhood thing is
it's
travesty.
demonology, is it not? I mean,
yeah.
for all intents and purposes.
Well,
but you do believe in demonology.
Actually,
I
believe I've got an actually here. That a corporation was defined by the Vatican. I mean, and maybe potato. We're talking about defining demons, but
the Vatican is a corporation. Go on.
Well, that is, yeah, but they basically brought the concept of our modern day corporation into fruition through their own laws because they wanted themselves to look like, you know, an organization was a person. And
Immortal.
Now our corporate version today, people think about Walmart and they think about like these, you know, conglomerate companies, but really a corporation was that. It was also like, you know, a military kind of
guild law. A guild was originally a corporation.
The United States itself, you could argue, is in itself a corporation.
So a demon. So we're a demon.
Literally.
Well, yeah, I mean, the demons don't necessarily have to be altogether nefarious.
I think I would say we're not. I would say we're not a demon.
Some
Hear
of
me
my best
out.
friends are demons. Hey.
Hear me out. What it is that it's a soulless person, right? It is a person. It's a legal metaphorical person, but without a soul, right?
A homunculus.
Yeah. So by doing that, you have a political body or a corporate body, and you can invest. And this is where demons come in, right? So you can have like the currency. I think if you look at like Venrock, that flow of money, it just seems demonic. Like, so there's the demon, but it can move in and out of like into Pepsi, into Apple, into a blue chip, and out again. That's the demon, right? Because it can move in and out of things easily, especially if they're just soulless cash shells.
Word. Yeah, no, that's the thing, man. I mean, I don't know. I think that there's it always kind of feels like these images that go along with when you say demon, what that conjures up, in one's mind. You might see the spiky tail and the horns or whatever.
Well, let's do it. What do you see? What do you see when
I see something that is like when people talk about like sigil magic. If I see logos, they feel very much like sigil magic. You're talking about money as mammon. Like, what is that other than sigil magic? You're imbuing something with value that otherwise wouldn't have value. And though, like when you look at like what Freud had to say about money, like people will kind of scoff at it, that there's this idea that children playing with their feces, if left to their own devices, is actually something that adults are kind of doing when their relationship to money, when they're equating value, they're projecting value into, especially if you're talking about paper, like you're like, and you're like, oh, this has this much value, and you're kind of like imbuing it with your mind. And also just like a corporate logo and what advertising is, like all of that just seems to be like what was being pointed to as demonology, and that this kind of like these kind of artistic representations of the thing are almost like a shell that stands between us and that thing, you know what I mean? Like they're like a front for what is actually, the manipulator. That's why they're manipulators, because they work so well like that,
Based. This is demons, right? I don't know. This is Saint Anthony, right? And he's is that right?
Are we going back into St. Anthony territory again? That was so great last week. I really enjoyed that.
All these demons, yo. These are all the greatest paintings are. Is that right? He's in the desert and he's got demons attacking him. He's going through like a trip, and then these are all demons getting him.
Mm-hmm.
This is basically the desert scene from the Beavis and Butthead Do America movie.
Yeah.
So this is what peyote's like.
I think that was what they were trying to say. Is that they were becoming Catholic. This is a good one too. Hold on, he's like, whoa,
dude! That dude right now is all. It's like a music video.
Let me talk about street dogs for a second. So in Argentina, one of the things that was really cool is the street dogs. So the dogs are wild, essentially, for the most part, and especially in Buenos Aires. And you just see them running around the streets, and they're smarter, right? Like, so they don't have, here a dog will like just run around the street and get killed in your own neighborhood because you keep it inside all the time, and it's Stockholm syndrome to love you, but it doesn't know what it's like on the outside world. It's not like, these are almost regressing back into being like smarter wolves again, essentially. And so it'd be great. You'd be like walking around at night and there's like police and criminals and gangsters and everything. But the dogs would see you and they'd remember you. Like they'd be looking at the crosswalk, wait for the light. And this is a colorblind animal, mind you. Waits for the light to turn, crosses the street, sees you, says, hey, you need any help? And it like defends you. Like it goes with you through the night, making sure that nobody gives you any trouble, and like starts getting other dogs involved if you're like rambunctious or you have a lot of friends. And, this is a good thing because the dogs keep you from getting robbed. You get where you want to go. You've got like a whole team. Like police see you and they think you're cool because you've got dogs, and like kids are safe. It's like it's a major part of the experience. And then you'll go get pizza and you'll share some pizza with the dogs. Like that's kind of the thing, right? Like the pizza's cheap and then the dogs eat too.
I gotta. Dude, take a little trip with me. Says in the comments, I want masculine so bad. The one thing I never tried. Well, don't knock until you tried it. That's a great misspelling right there. Maybe it's misspelling.
I think it's intentional.
Isn't that what Obama ordered in his email? Pizza and dogs.
Something like that. So there's a whole thing there with Oogie Pizza. Actually, we don't have to get into.
I thought that was the bombshell that just came out, that he wanted masculine in his pizza so bad.
Should we do that thing? All right, Pizzagate. Let's just do it for a second because it did come up this week. If we're gonna get canceled for something, I mean,
how did it come up this week?
Arrested.
Boy. Oh, that's right. Yeah, Jimmy P's homie.
Yeah, John Podesta's close friend. Slade Somer arrested for alleged child abuse, including hundreds of child pornography videos, and at least one, I think more, that he made himself allegedly.
You know what I hate though about this in particular is that they're gonna take this guy and make it seem like that all of his friends are in on it too. He's obviously a lone wolf.
Sure,
It's like it's just a dumb coincidence that people are gonna weaponize against.
Totally, just a dumb
coincidence.
Dude, I don't know if I've gone off on this show before, but it's just like, you remember like Anthony Weiner was on, like, he did, like, in the midst of the height of like the Pizzagate freak out, right? And it was like, we saw some crazy stuff. It was only a few days before most of it was scrubbed from the internet, from people, from social media sites to the most powerful people in Washington, blah, blah. And there was some crazy shit there that no one could deny. And I initially was like, wow, you're going to have, what seemed the Occam's razor of what was going to come of this was that some of these people are going to have to basically, what other out do they have other than to say they have a really dark sense of humor? Because all this stuff was undeniable that they had shared. So I was like, the best thing that they could argue is that, oh, we were joking. And that's not what happened, though. And I was so surprised that where they went to was just straight gaslighting. Like, you didn't see that. Like, that didn't happen. Like, that was just a complete denial. They scrubbed the internet faster than I'd ever seen it scrubbed up to that point. And then pre-COVID. And then it was like Anthony Weiner did this freaking interview at the height of that. And what did he do? All he talked about was the guy who walked in to Comet, I guess it was Comet, and shot the floor with a shotgun. And in doing so, managed to destroy their computer, like with their hard drive or whatever. Like, with that shotgun when he shot the floor. I don't know how that happened, but apparently that's what happened while he was asking to see the basement, which, by the way, as crazy as that guy was, they did say in a interview in a magazine, I forget what it was, that they bragged about the size of their basement and that they had all their fresh ingredients, their tomatoes down there, and then they denied that they had a basement. So this guy was like, wait, you say you're bragging about your basement, now you say you don't have a basement, let me see it. But Anthony Weiner, all he would talk about was this guy with the shotgun, as though he represented the entire demographic of anybody who questioned any of this stuff at all. Like, we became representative.
Yeah, and to be fair, only like a tenth of us have IMDb's. So
right. And so that's another topic is people what IMDb did, because IMDb removed the ability to, they used to have it so it was almost like a social media. In fact, it really was like you could comment on IMDb. You remember that?
Yeah,
it was like, it was kind of like Facebook or something about movies, and like I loved it because you had chat about movies with all these people, and like, but then that was the Pulse shooting. So the Pulse shooting happened, and it was within a day. So the guy who shot that place up, he had played a transvestite in an Iranian film. And then you had people on CNN discussing his sexuality and saying he was very private, he was very whatever. And it's like, dude, this guy was like a full-on flamer dressed up as a lady in this film, like starring in the film, not just like he had some small part. I've never
heard this before. This is all new to me.
Yeah, and so I looked up the movie and I was looking at it, and when you went to the comments, it was like, holy shit, everybody in the comments is going off about this.
Do you remember the name of the movie?
I have a screenshot in my hard drive somewhere.
Yeah, but I'll find it in a second. Also, we got another super chat from VBDC. Who I love you, bro. How's it going, Seth? John Podesta is the head of the White House UAV task force. So when I was in the airport in Germany, I spent like 5 days traveling back and forth. I missed a flight one time, going to like Portugal, Germany, Ireland. It was horrible. One time I'm sleeping, and I can only sleep for like 2 hours at a time ever because I'm waiting for another flight. There's like the German video section for you to sit and relax. And they're putting on, like, you have an option of like 3 things to watch. One of them is German news. The other one is like UFO History Channel. And all of a sudden it's John freaking Podesta. And he's telling everyone about UFOs and how like the government shutdowns and all these things. What it's really about, it's not about, it didn't say what it's not about me, but it did say it was about UFOs. It's just amazing. Cause like, this is like, how are you going to rebrand this guy? He's like on Ancient Aliens now too, by the way.
Right. Alphonsus too. He was a weird one. And
also kind of scammily related to crypto, which makes it, I was thinking about that guy's arrest in conjunction with the Binance thing. And so I don't know. It seems like a lot of stuff's going on. And I just remembered that the end of this week, as I think I mentioned last time I was on the show, that Bitcoin will be 777 weeks old on Friday, which ties into a bunch of other dates and stuff relating to Trump. So I'm expecting more. There'll probably be more fireworks by the end of the week.
I like you doing your forecast. You're like a cult forecast of.
There was a good one.
well.
I tried to remember it for you, but I lost it. It was about like 48, I think, and it was associated with like the value of Malay was 48, and several things going on with that. I'll find it for you.
The one I think I shared it again. I shared it on the show that I retweeted was that he's so his whole stare, he resembled Malcolm McDowell in A Clockwork Orange. Yeah, there it is. 66 weeks, 6 days.
Right.
Before Clockwork Orange came out. But then also he was born 66 years, 6 months after Oppenheimer was born. So
that's not bad.
Kind of in the Clockwork Orange. What is it exactly? But
where does Barbie fit into this?
Here's the one I found. It was Malay's 48, Illuminati's 48, Donald Trump 48. Is that anything to this?
What is this English gematria? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm not sure which numeric system he wants to be playing with.
42. So. Yeah, I hate when people do that. It's just like, okay, it's really
that's what he's
septenary or something.
You are
septenary.
I'm a gematria snob myself. I have to be.
It's really good if you like limit yourself kind of and go with the hits.
It's enough there in the first place. Like I don't want to like make it work. It feels just very Kenneth Grant to me to just be fudging my gematria to make something work. So I really want to do that.
I really don't like Kenneth.
This one isn't a gematria thing, but like just because we were talking about Argentina and Israel and Iran and nuclear, it all kind of like for me what I find interesting is like when I was in one of the moments I was leaving because I'd met Alberto Niesman, and he was a lawyer who was trying to clean up after about 10 years after a crisis in Argentina where there'd been a bombing in Buenos Aires in a barrio where there were a lot of Jewish people. And so a lot of Jews had moved to Israel after this because of this terrorist event, which had put on Interpol several particular Saudi Arabians who were associated, and also Iranians, but Saudi Arabians who were associated with the former Sultan of Saudi Arabia. And at the same day, I think it's the day after or the same day that Niesman was suicided, right? Because he was left with a gun in his hand 2 hours before his court case. About 2 days after we had met, he gave me a USB drive, which had all of his documents on it. And so I had gone to Paraguay. And so when he died, I was like, I better leave the country because it's like, this is a pretty bad situation too. I didn't understand like how deep he was into or what it was. And so he had about, 2 hours before his court case, he suicided. But same day, Mohammed bin Salman becomes the new Sultan of Saudi Arabia because his father unexpectedly dies and he usurps the throne and he puts several of his uncles in house arrest in their apartment buildings. So this all starts to happen. And then Christina Fernandez Kushner, let me see if I can just find, I don't even know if I can find her picture immediately, but it's like 2019, like about a little later, because like I was talking about this in late 2019, right before COVID hit. She came out and was saying, that the government had, like the American United States government, Obama had forced them to give their secrets, their nuclear secrets to Iran in a deal through the United States government because of Obama in exchange for a grains for oil deal because Iran had oil and needed grain and Argentina needed oil at the time.
You say grain?
Yeah. So like actually
doesn't Russia supply that for them?
Yeah. But I think like this is 2008 to 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Timeline. Yeah.
2008 to 15. And so before Trump period, we've, since Trump got elected, made great strides with Argentina. Like lemons coming from Argentina have like changed the price. Hopefully he doesn't get lost. We'll find him again. Lemons. I don't know. But the point is Argentinians are able to make better trade with the United States now. So there's like a lot of growth happening there. But the thing with Argentina and Alfredo Niesman is that they lost the fact that they set this up, that they wanted to remove these supposed terrorists from Interpol lists in exchange for nuclear secrets to Iran, and that this was all coming out publicly at the UN, that they made this conversation, means that a lot of people were in on this, knew that this was happening, and they didn't want Iran to get those secrets. And guess who probably would want those secrets is Israel. And Israel's been really vocal recently about their nuclear potential. right? Like Netanyahu said he was going. Is that right? I hope I said it right.
Yeah.
I always mix him up with the cool rapper. Remember the rabbi rapper?
I know who you're talking about.
I have no idea.
Oh my god!
What was his name?
I can't remember, but I listened to that guy.
Matisse Yahoo. That's right. Sorry.
Mm.
You guys don't remember Matisse Yahoo, bro?
It's starting to come back.
Sorry, I just had to take a trip down memory lane. But yeah, Netanyahu went to high school at the same high school in Chicago, Illinois that Adam Krigler from the other show went to. So he
really
grew up in the United States essentially. And so he was recently chastising several people in his government about talking about nuclear, like making the threat, because they're not even supposed to technically have nuclear. It's just really obvious that they do.
Right.
So, but the thing is that technology doesn't really come down just to weaponization. It also comes down to use and free energy, right?
Well, you remember when Saddam Hussein was bragging about that, and that didn't work out so great for him, you know?
That's what I think.
And then that wasn't even a thing. Yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to load this model up. 1 second.
Oh,
there
awesome.
he is.
He pulled it up. I feel like I was late on the draw on this one, but yeah, since we were talking about Podesta.
Oh, the walnut pizza. Oh, that was his favorite, right?
Yeah, this is the model that anyone can go and download. And you can scroll through. There's a few other ones. They're all pretty safe.
Didn't he like Domino's on his pizza? Wasn't that his thing?
Look, just be honest though, David. You've gone to India Joe's. You love Joe Schultz walnut sauce that he makes.
Sure.
Like that's the best walnut sauce in the world. And you've had walnut sauce probably on Berber pizza, right? Like, to be honest. So that's the sad thing.
I was a bigger fan of the Jumpy Monkey. But...
Really? I liked India Joe's better. But I don't know. The thing is,
whatever. Teach their own.
Yeah. To each their own.
Could this be a conspiracy?
What are we talking
to
about?
tarnish walnut sauce?
I'm just saying, like, as much as people were like, "There's no way that these rich white people are eating walnut sauce pizza," like,
oh no, they are, yeah, for sure.
I've done it. It's not necessarily kids. There are actual circumstances where walnut sauce exists. So just so you know, but that doesn't mean that they aren't also, doing all these other horrible things.
No. There's some indicative emails that weren't just the ingredients. It's literally like who they're bringing to the party. It's like, okay, what? Yeah.
The scariest like signaling of that, I think I've already told you guys before, but I guess I'll repeat it. Was on the Instagram of a pretty well-known, really great reviews horror director, and he had a whole account basically on Instagram that was just pictures of pizza, and it's like, oh, this is all, there's like marketing pizzas with the titles of his movies on them, and then he's like, this account is just for pizza, but then there's even one shot that is a hospital bed, baby's hospital bed with a little tiny pizza inside of it, like a child's pizza. And I was just like, okay. And discovering this, having come out of his movie and thinking and getting these kind of creepy vibes from it, and then looking at how much success he has in, well, it's the director of Dr. Sleep. And
okay, I see what you're saying.
The
House on Haunted Hill and all that stuff, which I haven't even. That's the only one I've seen of his stuff. But he's got this. The thing is, he has got this wife. He's like his wife is she's in all of his movies, and it's a very Ghost Rider situation, if you know what I mean. Like
right, word, totally. You think she's CIA or no?
Well, I'm not. No. Maybe I don't know.
Enough said.
I think we're all mature enough, though, that we can see a pizza in a tiny little child's hospital bed and not think that that's weird. Come on, guys.
Sure. I mean, yeah, it's just, people love pizza. It's kind of like people love Santa Claus.
Oh, Andreas, you're on mute.
I'm yodeling. I didn't want you to hear. No, but why does Podesta love aliens now, or always had? Like, what's his? Because like the other thing I feel like is Mysterious Skin.
The little movie. Kids. They look like little kids.
Do you ever watch Mysterious Skin? Like how
I've heard of it.
Homoerotic has your independent film watching ever gotten? Mysterious Skin is about like a boy prostitute who is
okay, yeah, I have seen this.
Abducted by aliens as a child.
David Gonzalez has a thread on that movie.
This movie is incredible. I hate to admit it, but it really is really important. And it talks just about how someone can be abused, withhold that trauma, and then think that they were abducted by aliens, right? I mean, it's all in there essentially. And I think
Is that
that's
Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
yeah, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's one of his best movies.
Okay.
I mean, granted, it's a lot to watch, and I would say like if you can't handle it, just stick to John, where he's like confessing his masturbation and pornography, and he's lifting. Like that's a good.
That movie's got a great message, though.
Great message.
It really does. Yeah,
Super
the way
solid,
that everything
bro.
ties together. Oh, it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a man's movie. But it was Mysterious Skin. The idea of communion and this association with being abducted and being like I was put in. I think that might be a thing for Podesta.
Oh, I gotcha. Abduction. Ooh, that's it there. Ooh, that's creepy. Yeah, there's an angle there. I see it immediately. Okay. Up there with like the Pizza Underground, Macaulay Culkin's band.
Yeah,
and how they only did those, those covers.
I went to a show. I saw Pizza Underground in Tijuana one time. They're actually way better than you think. It's great.
Oh no, they're great. They're a great band. I just and the thing is that I'd have to ask one of the members, even if they know. I mean, you have to ask Macaulay ultimately, and who knows what he would say. But the idea of basically of people like child actors being ordered up like pizza, and if you like Corey Haim and terrible things that some people go through, I have to wonder if that's.
I felt strongly that's what he was doing. I thought his whole point was like, I can't talk about a lot of these things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on tour to get it out of my system, because I can't even say the things I want to say. So what I'll do is I'll just like try to feel better about it by singing some of my favorite songs from the
dude, unpopular opinion that I hold after everything I've looked at. I really don't, we've discussed this, but I really don't think that Michael Jackson, I think they used him as a scapegoat or something along those lines. And then if you look at what Macaulay Culkin had to say, what Corey Feldman had to say, Macaulay Culkin above all else, it's like, I really feel that Michael Jackson was a victim in all likelihood himself, and that those younger child actors, they really felt like a kinship with him, and that it was authentic, and that he was a very traumatized individual, and they actually felt safer with him being a victim, and that the way that he was kind of like demonized, and they used the media like just went crazy over like putting all that on him. It just really felt like it was an example, like not at the time. I thought at the time like, oh sure, this guy's fucking whatever, but at this point I really feel that was all backwards, and that he was really somebody who held a lot of cards, and if he really wanted to, Michael Jackson himself could have exposed a lot of people for their goings on that affected him on a personal level.
I think he did, man. That's why they took him out. Like I always thought that. I grew up like always crazy strong a supporter of Michael Jackson. I remember like vividly some of my earliest memories of Michael Jackson is like this dude, this soldier for freedom is freeing Brazil from oppression. That's like I think 5 years old. That was like what Michael Jackson meant to me. Like that's
that
what
makes
he
no
is.
sense, because if you look at all the like the HBO special and Finding Neverland, and then it turned out that guy was debunked with one point that was like the date that he gave for the thing that he claimed happened to him at Neverland Ranch or whatever, and then it turned out that the place wasn't even freaking under construction yet or something when he said that it happened at that place, and it was like, dude, his whole story fell apart, and it's like, wow, who's sponsoring this? What's the incentive to do? Yeah, right? Exactly, dude.
And I think the big reason for it. So first off, here he is, and all I want to say is that they don't really care about us, and he like financed the entire favela, fed everybody, like he took care of it. And this is in a place where drug dealers are feeding people and providing medicine, right? You have to understand like context for how bad things were at the time. Like they're the only.
Mr. Beast is doing that now.
Yeah, he's Mr. Beast. This is such a good analogy. He really was. And he's trying so hard to tell people what's going on. So with his money, like his money is going into the Neverland Ranch Foundation, which was giving money to all these kids around the world who've been suffered from human trafficking, abuse, exploitation, etc. But that money comes from the royalties, right? Which all of a sudden disappear when people don't want to play Michael Jackson on the radio anymore. And then this is all part of the plan. Otherwise, if Michael Jackson's music's picked up for a commercial for a car, then more kids are protected. But if he's actually doing things like, so the other thing is to move other people in to take over his foundation now that he's dead, right? And that's a major thing with Michael Jackson, but also Macaulay Culkin, right? He's now getting his Hollywood star for the first time. They're finally giving him the Hollywood star, like I think this week or something like that, which is crazy, right? Like I can't believe they didn't.
Isn't the story with him that he was the highest paid actor in Hollywood just after Home Alone, and he got paid like insane amounts of money? I think his parents screwed him over.
But his dad's the reason why he got paid that much, though. His dad was the one who demanded it.
from what I remember, and I could be wrong about this, and somebody can correct me, but from what I remember, he got paid so much more than Elijah Wood for The Good Son because he was the cute kid from Home Alone, but he was the bad son.
Yeah.
And that after that happened, like people couldn't see him the same way. And then, like, isn't it amazing that Elijah Wood, who wasn't nearly the star that Macaulay Culkin was, and didn't get paid nearly as much, ended up.
I have to. There's a simple.
I've seen
Back
North,
to the
yeah.
Future. Back to the Future. What? This
Oh,
guy...
come on, that's 3 seconds. At the
It was
arcade, but yeah.
masterful. Sorry.
There's a simple thing with child actors, because really cute child actors tend to grow up to be kind of funny looking adults. Let's be honest. And so that's what happened. Elijah Wood grew up and was just more attractive than Macaulay, and as an adult, and that's probably why.
It depends. I think Macaulay.
But then there
Culkin
also might be a
fine
lot of
if he
hidden
knew
weird shit,
heroin.
because Culkin is a weird guy.
Culkin
But
was stressed out. His dad met,
and he was a bigger star than Elijah Wood ever was.
Him and his brother Kieran lived in an apartment on the top floor and would just drop water balloons on people as they passed by, and there was no parent oversight at the time, because his parents were constantly trying to get him more jobs and more money. And I think the final one was when they did the Nutcracker thing. And so a lot of people, like, the way I've always looked at it is like, they're like, we don't really want this kid anymore, do we? Because it's like, I don't think $17 million or whatever he demanded, it was a lot of money, like, he demanded for the Nutcracker movie. But the more I think about it, the Nutcracker is crazy. Like, if you've seen the Macaulay Culkin Nutcracker, and Pinocchio with Jonathan Taylor Thomas are like the two pedoerotic, like, Bohemian Grove mainstream movies of that time, right?
Dude, was that what year are we talking about? We're talking about the 90s? Because 1999, Eyes Wide Shut, Can I Stay Up and Watch the Nutcracker, Helena says to Nicole Kidman, who's playing Alice. So you have, just to be clear, you got the characters of Alice in Wonderland and Eyes Wide Shut. Alice, obviously, as the mother. Helena was her teacher, was Alice's teacher in Alice in Wonderland. At the beginning of Alice in Wonderland, she's getting lessons from Helena, but Helena in the beginning of Eyes Wide Shut is getting lessons from a tutor. And then there's also like Helena Blavatsky and Alice Bailey seems to be maybe encoded, but she says, can I stay up and watch the Nutcracker? Is this the Nutcracker that she's talking about? That's an interesting one. If you look at the argument people make about there's the abduction at the end of the movie with Helena. So the two guys that were at Ziegler's party who like are walking down.
David, $5. Andreas, I'm impressed with the movies you know of. Ever since Pink Trip brought me to you, I thought you would be perfect for a Gregor Rocky movie. That's sweet. Thank you. I like that. Can I be in one of like the ending sequences where I'm impregnated by a bug and it like sprouts out of me? I love that part. You guys watch Gregor Rocky Doom Trilogy?
What's he done?
Doom Trilogy, bro. Doom Trilogy. He also did an episode of Red Oaks.
I know the name. I just can't.
Yeah. Don't watch this movie if you're not like
the Doom Generation.
The Doom Generation's
he's the mysterious skin guy. Okay, my bad.
Yeah,
I remember this movie. Yeah,
he's in so many things. Yeah. He's a great director. I can't help myself. I like that. I also like that Eugene guy who made what's it like Fiction?
Or
you know what I'm talking about? And what's that? Yeah, Kaboom's all right. What Fiction? Eugene. Middlesex. No, what's it called? Happiness. The movie Happiness.
Happiness.
Oh yeah. Oh, he did. Oh God, what was the first one? With the little girl. Jesus Christ.
Todd Solondz. That's what it is.
Wasn't it Ghost?
Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Welcome to the Dollhouse. Take it. Do it in front of me. Yeah, it was horrible. And then Happiness, really important movie. Storytelling. You have to watch it with your mother. No, just kidding. Don't do that.
Don't do it.
Palindromes. I actually thought Palindromes was pretty great. Palindromes was the first movie.
It was all right.
It's the first movie to do this though on the cover. Like look where we're going. It's brilliant.
You know actually. What? Wiener Dog was set up to be a really good movie, but it wasn't really because the girl refused to do it, who was from Welcome to the Dollhouse, and she was going to play herself and make this. She was going to be a part of the movie, and they had somebody else playing her, and then it didn't make sense. But Danny DeVito's part was actually really good. That was the takeaway from the movie. He kind of made it all. He made it worthwhile. But yeah. Dude,
what's up with the Nutcracker though? They Tchaikovsky hated it. He didn't want to do it. He was upset about it. He's like, why do I have to do this? I'm poor. I guess I'll do it. Right. And then they made it into a ballet, but it's got freaking rats and nuts. Yeah. And what's you guys have any thoughts on, because they made me see it as a kid.
Never
I
seen
think
it.
that it's related to kind of the El Dorado Bluebird thing, where it's like the dream, and that you can't take the things from the dream back with you, and like that's just like this
It's
is a completely separate realm, you know.
Dream story, you know. I seem to remember in Eyes Wide Shut. So it's like just remembering Mark's essay where she says, "Can I stay up to watch the Nutcracker at 10 or whatever?" But then the parents are going out, and they're going to stay out past 12, and that's the realm of death and when transformation. But she stays home, and it's all loaded.
Right. Oh, totally. Oh, and by the way,
Christmas too. Santa, you know, is all that. That's what I was thinking about in there earlier. Sorry, that Eyes Wide Shut.
It's the best Christmas movie.
Well, yeah, it is. It's the best movie.
In my opinion, it's the best movie. Period. It's my favorite movie. Eyes Wide Shut. No question.
Great. It's incredible.
But I want to say real quickly that the other character from Alice in Wonderland is Bill. Bill Harford is the lizard with the ladder. There goes Bill. You remember?
Right.
Just
true.
You know,
poor Bill. Yeah.
If I'm going to bother to show how the characters are from.
Do you have any
Alice in
archetypical ideas about the reptilian cleaning the chimneys for giants?
We're back to the chimneys again.
Yeah, well, we should do more on that.
That was magical. Like Mary Poppins, if you go back and watch that movie, a lot of that magic seems to be implied from the chimney sweep, Dick Van Dyke. And even in the song when they're saying Chim Chimmery, there's this quote about like that's where the luck comes from. I wish I could pull it up the top of my head. I've seen too many Disney movies recently. But they're implying this whole thing, and sure enough, everyone can basically like pop into the chimney and come out, and they all end up flying. Dick Van Dyke's also the one that has them jump into the like the chalk paintings that are on the sidewalk before it starts to rain. And so like he's the one that is this like shaman that brings them in between the real world and this like artificial world. Mary Poppins doesn't necessarily do that. Mary Poppins doesn't have to play by the same rules, but she's like the gaslighter. She's not even really the magical one. It all comes from Dick Van Dyke. And that's not just in the movie. There was actual belief system that these chimney sweeps had some kind of a magical quality. Now I personally think it was like, you know, everyone felt bad about the chimney guys. Like they've all got black lung. They don't get paid very much. They're just in your chimney cleaning. There probably was like fatalities. So like, you know what? You get to be lucky. Like you're magical. So like, you know, don't feel so bad about yourself, bud.
Oh, Andreas, you're muted again.
I'm just yodeling again. No, with the plague, they had a lot of people that would carry smoke around because they thought that smoke would ward off demons and spirits and things like that. So I think also the fact that they're constantly around smoke, they're supposed to be healthier, and the copper, right? So like the idea of copper killing cholera and stuff. So the plumbers were also healthier and were considered to be lucky, things like that during that time. Who were coppersmiths.
Thomas, on the Dick Van Dyke subject, with what you're saying, is that the reason why in the show he would always trip? And that it was suggesting that he was a tripper. You know, the intro to every show, he always trips over the.
I always assume he was just drunk.
Yeah, okay. I think that so you've got like Cockney accent, and they're both like they're both travelers. Maybe they might be like indigenous British gypsies, like the local people that are the most British you can be. So much so that they have to learn English because it's not the local language, and they come from And there's she's like a witch. Right, she's a witch, and like that's the lower class. It's like Song of the South. It's the same story. It's instead of a black person, it's a witch woman. You know, it's like an indigenous commoner who works. That's like so wrong for the aristocrats. You're supposed to have people that never work, right? Like if you're a doctor, that's dirty because your hands are working. It's like these are not. You have to never touch anything. I don't know. So I find that to be the thing. It's like these are the people that actually do things. So great is the work, and at that time they're thinking of magic as work. And
word.
There's something about Mary.
Mary Tyler Moore
and Poppins.
Mary, yeah.
And Ben.
I don't remember her last name.
Yeah.
Are we talking about Mary Tyler Moore? I mean, we're talking about.
No, something about Mary is the movie Ben Stiller.
Oh yeah, the movie, the Ben Stiller movie with Cameron Diaz and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, where'd that come from though? How did something about Mary come up?
Mary, I mean, that's
Mary
just
Magdalene?
Okay, so we said Mary Poppins. Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about Mary Poppins. It's the same kind of trope, you know.
Mary Poppins, Dick Van Dyke, Mary Tyler Moore. Something's going on here. I don't know.
I see the Mary.
Church fits in.
I haven't seen any of this stuff. So.
Dude, you know what? I want to see something crazy with Mary Tyler Moore. Check out the 60 Minutes episode from 1976 on the swine flu vaccine and what she had to say about the fact that they got her to do an advertising type thing for it, saying, "Oh, I got my shot," and then like she did. I didn't think. What did she not even take it or something? And she was just, that interview. That's a heavy duty interview with her, man.
Where's it at here? Swine flu, 1976.
Oh, swine flu, 1976. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you were looking at Gizmo right now, by the way, Andreas.
Which I'm not going to complain.
Oh, that's cool too, though.
About Gizmo, he's a demon.
Bringing it back to, while we're at that, let's just remind people that Billy rescues his girlfriend Kate Berenger. They hide in the now abandoned bank, where Kate reveals to Billy and Gizmo why she hates Christmas. When she was 9 years old, her father went missing on Christmas Eve and did not come home on Christmas Day either. Because several days later, when he was found dead in her chimney while dressed up as Santa Claus, she found out why.
I forgot.
Right, and this also relates to Bright Lights Big City, actually. She's in Bright Lights Big City. There's a whole weird thing there. So, like, and also, wasn't it Easter or something? She's like, don't bring up Easter in Gremlins 2. And then he's like, just stop.
I don't know. Yeah, this is probably, is this the right one? Because
yes,
Mary Tyler
this is the right one. And then no, she's later in it. She's like halfway,
Judy
three-quarters through, maybe somewhere in there. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's maybe she's later than this. I'm sorry. It's like midway or three-quarters, somewhere in there. She shows up. But that was the head of the CDC at the time. Gets called out freaking lying here in Super Hardcore. It's really kind of like, oh, there she is.
Oh wow,
yeah. Wow, we can actually.
Permission? Did you ask your own doctor about taking the swine flu shot?
Yes, and at the time he thought it might be a good idea. But I resisted it because I was leery of having the symptoms that sometimes go with that kind of inoculation.
So you didn't?
No, I didn't.
Have you spoken to your doctor since?
Yes.
And?
He's delighted that I didn't take that shot.
You're in charge. Somebody's in charge.
He's the head of the CDC here.
Wow.
This is your advertising strategy that I have a copy of here. Who's it signed by? This one is unsigned. But you'll acknowledge that it was your baby, so to speak.
It could have been from the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. It could be from CDC. I don't know. I'll be happy to take responsibility for it.
Whoa, let me I want to say also thank you. Brittany just gifted 5 memberships. So based anybody trying to watch the members only content, jump into that now. You probably already saw that, but that's freaking awesome. Mary Tyler Moore had diabetes. You know that? Diabetes, right? You know that? She got diabetes at 33 years old. It was right after her miscarriage, 1971. She did have vaccinations in her life before the swine flu, which is one of the reasons why her doctor advised her to be careful about vaccinations. So I find that to be particularly interesting. I'm not saying diabetes is sometimes caused by vaccines.
No, she got diabetes by being so sweet.
That's
she
what
just,
it was.
she's just,
I noticed that she died January 25th, 2017, which was just a few days after Trump was inaugurated. So,
yeah,
which I just think of as a very charged time. So,
yeah, all those people died. David Bowie, it was a lot. It was a lot at once at that moment. I think they were all like, "Get off the bus." I don't know.
Yeah, it's an exodus.
David brought up last week's Lavoie Zizek's talk, and I've seen probably 3 talks that he's done this week now since that one. So maybe we could talk a bit about how freaking based it is, because again, I get that he sounds like Ludwig von Drake, Donald Duck's German like scientist cousin, and it's hard for people. So I feel like we need to just tell people what he says, because I get it. People don't want to listen to him speak sometimes. I get it. But it's everything he says is true. It's amazing what he's getting away with, because no one can say these things. He's literally calling out Israel, calling out Hamas, calling out the left, calling out the right. He's calling
in all the right ways for all the right reasons. And it's not just him being super biased. He's actually got perspective.
Yeah,
and the left reasons.
Yeah, no, because that's the thing. I don't know. So he talks a lot. So do you have some thoughts? Because I know you watched it. Like, was there some things that like jumped out to you?
Oh no, it's one of those things. I'm sorry. That's like asking Trump what his favorite verse in the Bible is. Except I actually watched it. So like, I'm like, it's really all of it. It really
Yeah.
is. It's like it's beginning to end, and I'm like the whole time I'm like, wow, I don't have that very often where I agree with everything that somebody says. Like I'm open to him saying something I disagree with. He's not my freaking guru, but it's just like, yeah, it's just good point after good point. And for me, it's like RFK Jr., where it's like I'm so interested in what the man has to say that I completely forget what he freaking sounds like and what he's doing with his hands, you know, pulling out his shirt or whatever with the tuggers, whatever. I think you should leave thing, you know. That
one of the things that you said that I liked a lot, he brought up how, you know, secularism brought, so during the Spanish Inquisition, anti-Semitism was terrible, but you could convert and all of a sudden it was fine. And when this went away, and all of a sudden in the 1700s we go into a secular period, all of a sudden geneticists emerge, and all of a sudden it's not enough to convert. You can't convert because it goes to an even deeper level of prejudice. And I find that interesting because we at least had a way that we considered you alike based on your belief and your choices, and that goes away now.
It's a matter of kind of like what you take as primary, because if you're acknowledging the ethnic side of it and you're acknowledging the religious side of it, it's like what takes precedence. And if the ethnic side takes precedence to a very high degree, then, you know, like, because this is the thing, is that people convert to Judaism, and if they're practicing, then good for them. Like, why would that, you know, it's just it's like you need that perspective on it, because you can't deny the racial elements. That would be ridiculous, even though a lot of the time it's kind of for all intents and purposes in many cases, you know.
But today, like, if you're a Palestinian, you can be Christian, you can be Muslim, you don't have to be you don't have a choice to make. You're just Palestinian. Yeah.
Well, this is the thing, is that once you go there, once you let that take precedence, then you have to be on the defense, because there's issues. Like if you're talking 12 tribes, we don't know who is ultimately who. And the people who want to identify as Jewish and feel that they have good reason to should be able to embrace that. And even if it's like you're like 2,000 years ago, your ancestors converted, okay, whatever. This is your religion and this is your practice, and you have an identity that goes along with it that is also cultural, and that's all well and fine. And you should be able to embrace that. But if that's going to be the you know, if the racial element is going to be the sole emphasis, then you're going to start getting into territory that starts to approach eugenics, and nobody outside is going to take well to that for the most part, you know. And so, yeah, it's just perspective, you know.
Yeah, and it seems like they're moving towards integration. So they're going to say, okay, now you're a citizen of this state, and you don't have a choice, like, to change that. It's the state itself that you're in, and yeah.
The irony of what could be happening right now, we don't really know the full extent of, and I doubt we will, unless if you get everyone in Palestine to take 23andMe tests, and you still won't know. But the thing is that a lot of people could end up being Sephardic or Ashkenazi that were painting as, you know. That was the thing. If we, like, as bad as those tests are, and as much issue as I have with the emphasis on the DNA tests and all this stuff, because they are very problematic, at the same time, you know, we find out now that poster child that was on all the posters, sorry, this is redundant, during World War II, of like the perfect Aryan child, turned out it was like fully Jewish. And it's like things like that. It's like, you know, like oh man, like the Palestinians could just as easily be ultimately of the 12 tribes. And here we are having this fervor around it.
The Clayton Bigsby from the Chappelle Show, right? The
right.
blind racist.
Plus all the Ukrainians and Russians who were like, I can get out of the Soviet Union if I'm Jewish. You know, that does exist.
Right. So I like Zizek's treatment of it, because he kind of goes way past the holy war, and is just like addressing the issues for all the particulars involved in a very realistic way that I can't do justice. I take it in, I listen to him, and I'm trying to process it, and I'm like, wow, valid point after valid point. So I recommend that video.
Yeah.
Room.
I do like Zizek. I do like what he said. Let me go to what else we have. Okay, so there's Israeli government approves a hostage deal, pause in fighting with Hamas. So yeah, in terms of hostage deals, people being exchanged back and forth, where do you think we're going? Because like they have only so few people left. Is this about to be? I mean, are they going to just swallow Palestine? What do you think? I mean, are we at that point?
Trump's gonna come back and save everybody, strike and negotiate world peace, and
just as Napoleon's
fulfill
coming
his
out,
biblical role.
No, when you
As
say
Napoleon,
Trump, I'm hearing
chosen
JFK
Antichrist.
Jr. Right? You mean JFK Jr. when you say Trump?
As soon as
Same
Curb Your
thing.
Enthusiasm, because
They're
Larry
the same
did.
person.
It is the same person. That's right.
I mean, yeah, what's going on with Trump? I mean, he's been talking a lot, and people keep saying he's fully back and like it's happening. I mean, I hear that. Like, do you think that there's a huge realistic chance of him?
It has been ordained.
So what do you mean by it's been ordained? Also, like I've heard people saying
this
that.
Just.
But if I type 4chan, I don't know if I can
mean,
pull it up.
I think it literally is kind of a thing that, like, you know, the Book of Revelation is a script, and we're kind of following it, and or it's something more like media is a mirror, and but Trump, all the signs are there. You follow that guy, Mr. Donnie Darkened on Twitter. He's got a huge compilation of all the numerological insanities, but then there's things that, you know, he's not the only person that has numerological oddities about them, of course, but I don't know.
No, but it is
like
weird as hell and pretty pronounced. He's an archetype, you know, and I've gone off before, but yeah,
bro. Don't you want?
He is kind of like, honestly. Oh yeah, totally.
That's a real photo, right?
It's a very accurate photo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's from the 80s, but it's real.
You can get Vince Vaughn to corroborate that this is real.
That was at WrestleMania, I think.
That's actually the real Red Dragon.
Yeah. I mean, you know, he is older. It was Biden's birthday the other day. Biden is 81. Is that right?
Yeah, I thought he was 83.
Biden turned 81.
Oh, no. Would he be 83 when he becomes president for the... Wait a minute. What? Hey, he's supposed to do... Like, can you imagine another 4 years? My God, I'm sorry. I don't even... It's just insane.
How far do you think he can go? Like, how long?
To the door, you know. You can't quite get out of the building, which is why they keep him, you know.
As long as there's no stairs.
I don't know. I hate to just throw the jabs, but it's like, is the point of this now to have the oldest people in power so that you can control them the same as when, you know, like this is the cabinet around them is going to... How long can they keep him alive, kind of thing? Is that like, or we're going to go there? Or are they really trying to push for, what's his name? You know, DeSantis and other characters like Gavin Newsom to be running in 2024?
He's probably...
They got to get rid of him. Did you see whatever Blinken's face when he said something called Xi a dictator? And he was just like, Curb Your Enthusiasm music hits. And it's just, it can't go on. Unless, of course... he's not actually Biden, and he's a guy in a mask,
which is like the
he's gotten plastic surgery. That's the most
certainly
obvious thing ever. Every time I see the photos where they're analyzing his face and being like, he doesn't look the same. That guy, and you can even see the points of where they did the attachment thing that they do when people are getting facelifts and all this stuff. So yeah, he's gotten a ton of plastic surgery. Biden has. There's no question there.
Yeah. What's gonna happen? I mean,
he's looking like a plastic person in LA. Like you see it so often, but he's so old, it just looks even weirder.
Do you guys remember when when somebody caught a little, this is fucking weird, but a little guy coming out of his arm, and they were talking about like he's being puppeteered by nanotech.
Gremlins?
Like,
I did not see that.
You got to see that.
Obama. Is that not what's happening?
It's hilarious.
Okay.
I don't know how realistic is it.
Nanotech.
How realistic is a Gavin Newsom Trump debate? I mean, you think it's going to happen in the real primaries? Can you see this as a real thing?
But what the fuck, man? I'm sorry. I'm just looking at something really freaky, and I would like an answer that's not terrifying, that checks out. Because what the hell happened to the homeless in San Francisco? Like they literally, like, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm like,
swept up. It's prohibited now. They're setting it up for the election. That's why I think it's real. I think he's trying to say, like, I have the power. I'm a tropical fascist now. That's what it sounds like. It comes out like that.
It's terrifying. They put in all those planters. There's like 100 new planters downtown, like the Tenderloin or whatever, where you know. And I'm just like, is that where the homeless people went? Are they in the planters? Like, what is going on? I'm sorry to sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist, but it looks really freaky to me, whatever they do with the homeless. And it seems like most people, especially people in San Francisco, if you're going to talk about a group that they'd turn the other way, if people were just, you know, taken away, so to speak, like it would be the homeless. Be like, well, just
this
like
is all. They spent like 10 or 15 years ruining San Francisco so that everyone is militant authoritarian leftist, and it's really interesting to see. Like I told you, I've been to was going to the Rotary Club, and you'll meet up with people that like they live here. They're supposed to be Democrats. They're supposed to be leftists, but of course they're business people. And at a certain point, like they want to have the opportunity for, again, let's look at this picture. This is what they want. And when they don't see it, they're upset. Right.
Right.
And
That's
so
true.
the more they can make you upset by it, like by hurting you and everything else like that, then you'll be willing to take away everyone's freedoms, because that's the only way for this to happen. In San Francisco, it's already done. But it's amazing because in the last month, you've got people getting open and I think at least concealed carries in San Francisco for the first time in like 20 years. So they're setting up precedent for something really nuts to happen right before the election, and to make Gavin Newsom look really good, right? Because then all of a sudden he's the guy who can solve the California problem, and he solves it because he's young, virile. He's more than Trump, right? It's like this is the same thing they did with Biden. Actually, they're like, Biden's actually meaner than Trump. He's a jerk. He's even more of a jerk.
That's right. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Sorry, I wish I didn't have to. I wish I didn't, but I do. So I'm sorry, I just have to point something out. Somebody's bringing up JFK Jr. somewhere in the comments a second ago, and I'm just like, just because we're talking about the subject matter we're talking about, realize that JFK Jr. died in a plane crash the day and year that Eyes Wide Shut was released, which was July 16th, 1999, which incidentally is also the same day a year before the infiltration of Bohemian Grove by Alex Jones and John Ronson. Incidentally, John Ronson, I have to say this, came out with Kubrick's Boxes about 10 years later, and when he was the only man with complete access to all of Stanley Kubrick's archives. And so I find those set of connections really, really noteworthy. And like the JFK thing, I didn't used to see the significance of it, and now I think I do. Like, Apollo 11, where did that take off from? Wasn't it Kennedy
Space Center?
Yeah, like just
Well, I mean, just look at the similarities in appearance between Bill Harford and JFK Jr. They're basically like the same haircut.
I was at a Costco the other day, and I saw a guy looked exactly like Dick, but granted, he hadn't aged at all then, JFK Jr. But that's just another thing to know about Fitzgeralds and Kennedys. We breed.
And also remember that Dr. Strangelove was originally set to premiere on November 22nd, 1963, which was the day Kennedy was shot. So that makes two Kubrick movies that were, premiered or were set to premiere on the day Kennedy was killed.
Right. Well, let's be clear about the Dr. Strangelove thing. It was actually a special premiere before the full premiere, and it was that day, and it was canceled because of the assassination, which is just It's not just, it's a Kubrick movie. It's that you get the content. Have you seen the footage of Oliver Stone watching Dr. Strangelove with Putin in Russia?
No,
it's so weird. And he's like, and he's really interested to hear Putin's, response to it and everything. And Putin is just like, that this is within the realm of possibility, like he's just totally like, he really entertains it, But the look on his face as he's watching the end of Dr. Strangelove is freaking priceless, man. That is
really? I'm just amazed that he wouldn't have seen it. But that's an interesting question. Very interesting question.
Maybe he had, maybe he hadn't, but whatever the case is, they're doing a screening and they're watching it together, and doing commentary on it as they're watching it. It's just so weird. Like, and what the hell, Oliver Stone? Like, Oliver Stone did JFK, right? The movie JFK, and then he also did Natural Born Killers, which starred the son of a man who we know was participated in the assassination.
Both of whom were born on July 23rd, 723.
Really?
And and wait, of course, Stone does World Trade Center too, which is of has little hints of conspiracy to it, but it's not.
Right. And also I just have to say it, that the World Trade Center movie from Oliver Stone, if you start Jay-Z's album The Blueprint, which was released on 9/11 2001, and when the very first shot of the very first scene, the second that the alarm goes off before Nicolas Cage hits the alarm clock, when the alarm goes off, if you start it there, it will do exactly 2 rounds and end on the second that it ends. In other words, you could align it to the last second of the very end of the film after credits, like the bar, you match the bars, and then that's where the beginning of the album will land, the first round. So it's doubled, it's twinned, so to speak.
Which
And
is
then
great
also,
that because he just pulled up Adaptation and Nick Cage was twinned.
Right.
As
Yoko Ono released
back.
Blueprint for a Sunrise on 11/9/2001. Jay-Z released the Blueprint on 9/11/2001. Just putting
Oh,
that
wow.
out there.
Interesting.
Dude, adaptation is super real too. Just the idea that there's like some sort of lily that will, cause euphoria, and it's like
Or an orchid, actually, right?
Oh, an orchid, right? Yeah, I do love that.
Can that be like the blue?
Oh, because I get it, because Nicolas Cage and he's twins.
Yeah.
Okay, and then he's in the Twin Towers movie. Okay, gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah. Sorry, Thomas. What do you say?
Well, it wasn't the Blue Lotus rumored to be like the ancient Egyptians version of that.
Oh, have you ever had that?
Yeah, for sure.
I've tried ordering it back in the 90s, but it was like it wasn't anywhere near as strong as Salvia was.
No. It's just a light sedative. Yeah.
5
Get
kilograms
that
of
weak shit out of here.
Jeez, bro, what happened there? Yeah, I mean, you make a tea with it essentially. I don't know if you should really be. I don't know. I'm not like recommending blue orchids or whatnot, but it's interesting this exists. How about that? Isn't there also something though you shouldn't take it when you're pregnant or something? There's a thing about it. It can change your heart rate. Stop. Yeah, I don't know.
It's like the vaccine in that way. I see.
Ooh, it's all. They don't want you to get that picture. There it is. Yeah. What's also interesting is just because it's blue, right? Because a lot of the time they're kind of a purple, and the fact that they're called blue, because that whole idea of like, did blue exist? The Madame Blavatsky story of the bluebird. There's the fact that most of the paintings green. They have green. Rama's even depicted as green originally, and a lot of these gods. So green's more of the Egyptian blue is a green color. And then, of course, like their blue is actually this purple. So I don't know. I find that interesting.
Blue Rose. I'm thinking of the Lynchian turn. Twin Peaks. Blue Rose.
Mm-hmm. Looks like a Blue Rose case.
Do you want? I mean, God, why
Doesn't
didn't you
get
talk
any
about
bluer.
Twin Peaks until now? We should talk about Twin Peaks way more.
Yeah, whatever.
Smurfs. The Smurfs. One time, Smurfette asks for a blue rose, and she loses her blueness. I remember that being a major thing. I've always wanted a blue rose.
Do you know the most popular, the most sold album in Swedish history?
No.
You would think that it'd be like some pop album, like ABBA or something. It's the Smurfs Sing. It's the Smurfs album. It's the #1 selling album in Swedish history.
Because it's most relatable.
Because it's kind of like Smurfs. Yes, the most relatable.
Why
Exactly.
are the Smurfs in Donnie Darko, David?
I could have some thoughts on
What's
that.
the thought?
I mean, I think the thoughts are like actually like communicated in the scene itself, like his treatment of it. Trying to remember some of the details.
They're asexual, so they're unable to reproduce. Smurfette's created by Gargamel. The thing that I got out of it is it's showing you the mental processes of a brilliant mind. And if you're stuck in a scenario where all you're given is mediocre information, but you're still brilliant, you're able to get more out of it than others. And so he's going through this thing, which obviously Peo, who created the Smurfs, put a lot into the Smurfs. He put his whole life into it. He put socialism. He put Santa Claus and mushrooms. The entire history of the Bach saga, arguably, Gargamel and the cat Azrael, the idea of alchemy, that you're not just eating these, you're also turning them to gold, right? Like everything's in the Smurfs if you go for that. But his friends are thinking, oh, it's just this stupid cartoon. And they're fixated on the idea of Smurfette because they're now becoming sexualized in their puberty. And so they're looking for what they have. They have no connection to women. The closest thing they have to a woman is Smurfette or Jane from Daria or one of these things. And so they're trying to, it's like trying to find God, right? Like,
right, word. And this is also the scene, right, with Grandma Death with the mailbox approaching. And so, but it's also, it speaks to his own relationship to media and the malleability of it. And that they're like, why you gotta be so smart all the time, Donnie? And it's like, that's literally what it sounds like. He's like taking something and applying it's the same thing that he's exuding when he calls out the Patrick Swayze as the Antichrist. He's stepping out of the crowd think the like lockstep. What did Mateus Desmond call it? The never mind. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
I don't know.
where everyone kind of like link. There's a word for it, but it's like the way everyone kind of like synced up during the pandemic as a psychological phenomenon.
Collective mass psychosis, or
thank you. Yes,
mass
exactly.
formation.
Formation psychosis, exactly. And so that's kind of what you're seeing in Donnie Darko with the community, and that he's like the breakaway, and he'll stand there even though his voice shakes, he'll tell the truth, kind of thing. Yeah, or at least his truth. I was just speaking my truth.
This is probably a bad one to talk about, but just since I did it, I was saying uncharge evil from all symbols. Since we did Pizzagate and this is going to be reviewed anyway, uncharge evil from all symbols, recharge all symbols with love. I think this, but unironically, I think is where we're at, right? Because what we need to do, and I've been putting it up, and I was surprised how many people liked it. I was like, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for saying this, but my concern is that if we don't take away the evil that's been misused in a symbol and uncharge it of evil and just leave it laying around, then eventually evil people will pick it back up again and it will still be charged with evil. So it'll be a powerful evil symbol they can use. Right. So what we have to do is we have to recharge the symbol with the opposite. It has to be inclusive. This should mean inclusion, inclusivity, and everything else like that. I remember when someone first was saying, oh, this is funny that like 4 pride aprons make a Swazi, but I don't know. I think that this might be like truth emerging beyond itself. That something like this is, but unironically.
Didn't Hitler think he was being really like clever by turning it around, not realizing that it had already been turned around?
I don't know if that's true. So what I kind of believe about that, and I could be wrong, is just that because there's a Sarastika is like different because it's the Kali symbol, because one is the swastika is associated with the sun and good luck and spinning one way, and the other is associated with like moon energy and Kali and Shakti. So one has to do with the Narayana and one has to do with Shakti. I could be wrong. I want to Noel about that.
I think it depends on which culture you're looking at, and also like who of that culture is saying what. So like, Baba Hari Das explained to me in India that he's like, this is evolution, this is involution, depending on which way it's faced. Involution in this case, not meaning what people generally take it, but to just go inward, be into the senses rather than externalize outward, from the senses. And so like that, it's just a matter of you'd say Boga Apavarga in Sanskrit. So Boga being experience in the world, and Apavarga being transcendence of the world. And so it's a matter of how you're looking at it. But that's Patanjali's school of thought. It doesn't apply here. We're looking at all these different cultures. I'm sure they all had their own explanations. So
right.
What was the scientific term for this again? You always bring it up, Andreas.
The Gamadian. So someone asked, they're like, I had no idea that there were so many cultures that had such a similar symbol. I wonder what the historic origin of it was. So I say nature, and I pull up this article because, oh God, it's going to want me to like print the article. No, let me just pull it up. So highly circular polarized nanolaser with chiral Gamadian metal cavity, right? And you've seen the picture before, but the idea is that this is at the smallest size, able to produce thrust like a turbine. And so you have a photonic turbine, like the smallest possible photonic turbine. So it's natural that this would happen, because as soon as light hits it, it forces ions to the side, and then it thrusts, and then it starts to spin, right? Because of the direction of the right angle, it forces an angle. So it's the perfect shape in nature for producing energy or for utilizing energy, either for because a turbine can spin to produce energy, or it can use energy to be spun, right? So it's equivalent on both directions. And I think it's interesting that we're at a point now where we probably could do it. Like, I think we really could remove the evil of the symbol, because it's just such a brief blight in history. And the only way to do it, though, is to go to the very root of everything, find out what everything's about, but also be really adamant that it has to be about inclusivity. Like, it should mean conclusion of the trans. It should be LGBTX. That is what the symbol should be. They're the ones that can have it. I think that
maybe. Although I just want to the book. What was it? Norman Finkelstein's the H word industry. I feel like there's an industry that would be dismantled, and like now you're messing with people's money by taking the negative energy out of that thing.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. And that's going to be the major thing. They're going to have to start selling rainbow pride flags to make to recoup their losses. But yeah, I think that's where we're at. We're at that point basically where we have to reclaim symbols from evil. And if we don't do it, very soon from now, likely is when they're going to be picked up and used for evil. So I think it's more imperative than ever that we change it now. That's probably
it's not just about us perceiving evil in the symbols. It's also when we perceive the good in symbols and they're used in relationship to something evil, which we no longer perceive as evil because we were associating with this positive symbol. Enter that meme with the two planes both dropping bombs, one of them just normal and the other one with the pride flag and BLM and whatever written on it, and somehow this one's acceptable but this one isn't. I mean, bombs are bombs, lives are lives, right? So it's like when you're associating something with a symbol, that becomes problematic for a multitude of reasons. You can relate to a symbol, but you shouldn't let the symbol take precedence over the thing in itself, as Kant would say.
Right.
But you can't always get what you want.
Yeah, this is true. That's encouraging. Well, okay. Anybody else want to cover anything before I show your content?
I don't think so.
I know Alex has numbers. I know he's like, you guys don't even know what's going on right now.
Dude, of course.
Like, the fact that it's 20:03:59, like, but yeah.
20:03.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah. That's true.
I love how we talk about Christmas so much and it's freaking Thanksgiving. Like,
dude, it's one of those years. Like, I've been seeing Christmas way more and people putting lights up and everything. And I know we can talk again about humiliation. We should talk more about the days of humiliation and thanks, and like King James and his witches that he forced to fast for, that's all good. But yeah, you know what? We're good. We talked a bit about, next week we'll talk about Michaelmas. I think it's almost Michaelmas, and that's important. Make sure you go to Paranoid American. Check out his comic books. He's got a new combo pack. This is the Christmas kit that you're going to want to get.
These are almost gone, by the way.
Oh dear.
Oh, these are great. I got two of these stickers on my computer right now in front of me. I got the lady with the Brick Lane tool, and I got the Paranoid American Unsolved Mysteries sticker, both on my new computer. They look so great.
It makes it run faster too. It's basically like downloading free RAM.
Yeah. Which is what Apple's new computer, they said 8 gigabytes is like 16 gigabytes on new Apples, right?
RAM expander.
So yeah, make sure you get the chosen one, and you're gonna want to also should Frazzle Drip real quick. Frazzle Drip.
Oh yeah, that one you can still get right now. I've got a few, literally like a few in the room next to me that are out. But this one ended, but you can still purchase the comic through this site for a short amount of time. And the other big one is Chaos Twins. Chaos Twins is the last I checked, it had just hit over 20,000. I think. Ooh. This is the comic I'm doing with Sam Tripoli. So one's going to be a big deal because it's going to turn into something much bigger.
Is the Sam Tripoli Chaos Twins? I can find on Indiegogo probably this way. I spelled his name with it. Why?
That's it. Yeah, that's the top link.
Okay, there. Cool. Chaos Twins. Amazing. I do love Sam. I'm glad you're working with Sam. We should all be doing this. This is great. Everyone, get yourself a copy of the Chaos Twins by Sam and Thomas.
Signed by me and Sam.
Super based. It's going to be cute. That looks like an adorable comic. All right. So also Chosen One and then Crypto Kubrology. Make sure you go to Crypto Kubrology. Check out his Twitter. He's also made some videos. You can find the link here.
These are Sean's videos, but I'm kind of helped make them. Yeah. But I do want to say that watch out, because I am going to try to publish long form writing pretty soon, which I haven't done in a while. So yeah, I'm gonna just keep an eye out.
Gonna be great. Yeah, I do love
like
to follow.
The way you said that, it was like a threat.
I love it.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Watch out.
Be careful around school. Your own risk. Yeah. I agree, though. You should watch out. You could die. And go to the syncbook.com, where you can go to videos. Click at the top. You can get down to Syncflix, and you'll find David Plate's Synchro Mystic Research, which is all kinds of movies and music mixed together in the best of ways, sometimes in the most obvious of, like, some occultist somewhere in Hollywood was like, yeah, this is a good idea, before even David figured it out. And other times it's just straight up Keter, just the crown of Kabbalah just happening all the time. And you can also go to his Twitter or x.com/MKUltrasound723. MK Ultrasound, David Charles Plate. He's putting his movies up right here, and you can watch them. If you just click on highlights, they show up right there, and those are all of his. He just put up a new one today.
Hey,
I love
so
these.
go.
I put these on while I work and during the day. These are the coolest things to have in the background,
dude.
So if you scroll down just a little bit on my regular posts, see this one with the Shining. Look at this thread here. So like I'm tripping on this. So like I revisited this sync, and so you got Toy Story and REM's automatic for the people. And so you might be familiar with this, just the pattern of the carpet matches in Toy Story, and there's all these Shining references, and it relates to Freud's The Uncanny, Kubrick referencing that. But you have Danny and you have Andy, and so the song of Andy Kaufman's, in that album where he's like, Andy, have you heard about this one? If I could, we could go back to that thread there. I want to show you like scroll down, which one? Keep going. Yeah, there. So it says, who's Tony? Because you got Danny. Okay, so like the kid in Toy Story is Andy, and then you have Andy Kaufman, and then you had Tony Clifton. So Tony Clifton, if you look at the image next to this one that's in the same tweet, yeah. So this is Tony Clifton. And this was the alternate persona of Andy Kaufman. And so Tony, we know, is the little boy who lived in the back of Danny's throat. And so there's this really weird connection. But like when you watch Toy Story, that whole thing of Tim Allen's character of Buzz Lightyear realizing that he's not a real astronaut. And then you have, all these kind of accusations of Kubrick involved with the moon landing and stuff. And then the song, If You Believe We Put a Man on the Moon, it's so synctastic. It really does match. It really does do a thing. And actually where that song lands, because it only plays once with the film in terms of the rounds of how the album actually ends up meeting the film, is when Buzz Lightyear enters the rocket with the aliens, when he
also the fact his sweater
is
a handmade sweater, so like it's make believe, is the thing.
And Tim Allen voiced Buzz Lightyear, right? And Tim Allen is Santa Claus too. So.
Right. Ooh, Tim Allen's also Galaxy Quest, which is
really
which came out.
We're gonna thank God Christmas is coming, because like the new guys watch this new second season of the Santa Clauses show that he's doing right now, because it's really important. But he's just set up to get Roseanne is going to be on his show, so they can't stop him now. And yeah, he wants Toy Story 5 to be all about Andy all grown up with kids, which I imagine is going to be really interesting. Because if he's still talking to toys,
I'm down for a Tim Allen resurgence.
It's gonna be the brave little toaster in live form. It's gonna be great. I'm really excited.
Wow. I'm pretty excited. I wish I could get that movie. They would release that movie.
I'll give
Brave
you a
Little
copy.
Toaster.
I mean, I'll make sure.
I mean, I want it, but I want it in like 1080p. Like
it's a cartoon,
good quality, but they don't even release
it with AI to 4K for you. Are you kidding me? Where we're at now with technology is
do it, man. Do it.
Yeah, if we get a laser disc of that thing, you're set at that point.
Right.
But I have a good digital. I think you go to archive.org.
There's a DVD, but it's so but they really hate that movie, and it's really sad because it's like
they totally hate that movie. I showed it to some kids, and they were just like, "This is." Of course it's frightening, but it's so important because like the soul and like the form and the corpse and what happens to your body and your meaning. And I think there's probably no more.
Kind of like Toy Story, but like demented. And
Toy Story is pretty demented. They de-demented Toy Story. They unmented. I don't know. Check out the original trailer, like the first prototype with angry Woody. Because he's this angry psychopath in the original version. And they're like, Don Lasseter's like, no, we're not going to do it that way. So they had to redo the story completely. And he came up with it, I think, within a day, like the way they wanted to do it.
You guys seen the music video for the song Man on the Moon, where it's going back and forth, where Michael Stipe is an astronaut and then he's a cowboy. So they're showing you an astronaut and then he's a cowboy. So it's like what is in Toy Story but the astronaut and the cowboy? Just saying.
I'll get in trouble for that. Okay, love you guys. I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.
See ya.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.